Next time on Dragon Ball Z, in PS We Trust, aka Davey, Phil, and Spencer, are all training to go Super Saiyan and become the best gamers in the universe. But can they defeat the ultimate evil, COVID-19? Find out next time.
Hello and welcome to episode 12 of In PS We Trust. Now my name's Davey and joined with me as always is Phil.
What's going on, boys?
And Spencer.
Let's go.
We're a fortnightly PlayStation podcast and we each bring one topic of discussion to the table to go in depth on. But first, before we get into that, boys, what are you drinking?
I'd imagine I should start. You already know.
I was going to say, to spice it up one week, we should have like predictions of what each one of us are drinking, because, I like to pick things that maybe I've not drunk before on the show. And Davey likes to maybe put me down about my choices of lager. But he definitely knows what I drink because you've drunk it yourself, right? But I think whoever gets Spencer, it's going to be pretty easy. Unless you want to surprise us one week.
Nah, it's worth it. I'll drink the Buds.
It's 100% Budweiser.
Budweiser.
How is the Budweiser?
It's beautiful. To be fair, we were playing Mortal Kombat before this recording, me and Davey. So I was half tempted to just bin off, go into the shop, not buy Buds, and I would have just had a flagon of Fanta and some rum. And I'd have been drinking that.
That would have been good. Maybe try that next time. Maybe next time I'll let you win a couple more. And then you might get distracted. So what about yourself, Phil? What are you on today? What nonsense beer have you pulled out of the ether?
Oh, here we go, right? So I've started off. I've got a bottle of Korev Cornish lager. When I was in Asda earlier, I saw this. It piqued my interest because it was something that Laura and myself had a couple when we were last at the rugby over in Bath.
Nice.
So it took me back to fonder times, I have to admit. But that's gone down pretty quickly. And next up, I've got a Camden off the menu IPA Indian Pale Ale for you. In a nice pink can.
That's the same brand as my lovely textured bottles, isn't it? How does the can feel?
It very much is, and that's why I was sort of influenced to buy this when I saw it. But yeah, this can it's just a flat can. There's nothing special about the can.
Such a shame, especially considering their bottle game being so high tier in terms of the texture. You'd have thought it would carried over to the can, but that's a real letdown.
What I can tell you is the taste hasn't been a letdown because it's lovely. I've been experimenting quite recently with Brewdog, as you know, trying to go through their whole back catalogue and try probably everything they've produced. To be fair, I've got a big stack of it downstairs, but I'm really loving the Camden.
My choice this week was basically I had a couple of leftovers. So I had a couple of cans of Peroni that were left over from last episode.
And they're from Italy.
They're from Italy, and as we know, I absolutely smashed that accent last week. And I've got some Brewdog, which I got for free through one of their marketing deals. So I got like a 4-pack of Lost Lager that's in the fridge. And after the 10-pack that I had a couple of weeks ago, I started getting a taste for it. Took 10 of them to get me past the point of hating it, and to the point where it's actually all right. And so I got 4 of those to go. And then I topped it off. I thought, what's going to be the drink that kind of binds it all together, right? The kind of sacred drink that will get you to the point where you don't really care what you're drinking after that. And that's Estrella. So it's been a number of weeks that I haven't had Estrella. So I'm back. I got a lovely little glass that Phil bought me for Christmas, which is an Estrella little glass. I got that all prepped, ready to go.
So you're back on the Spanish, mate.
Back on the Spanish, but combine it with a bit of Italian and a bit of Scottish. You got a bit of a unique flavour there.
So I had those Lost Lagers a while ago because I got the same deal as you, and I first tried them, and to me they tasted like those Pilsners we had on Phil's birthday, if you remember those.
Didn't we go to Brewdog on Phil's birthday?
Yeah, we did. I was just about to jump in and say that. We actually did go to Brewdog for my birthday. That was one of the bars that we visited.
So it could be that we actually just had that lager before, and that's why it reminds us of a bit of regret from that night where you think, why have I spent £6 on this fucking pint?
Yeah. I remember it was in the sports bar, I think it was. Did we go to a sports bar? I'm fairly sure we did.
We did, yeah, we did.
Yeah,
we
and
did,
then
at
you,
the top of Park
you just
Street.
gave me a tenner or your card or something, said, just get us 2 Pilsners. And I walked up to the bar, because obviously you were watching that guy on Twitter at the time. And I walked up to the bar, I said, do you have any Pilsners? They were like, yeah, we've got one. I was just like, okay, we'll have 2 of those, please. It was foul.
Your problem is you're going to a sports bar where they serve Carlin and Foster's, and you said, "Can I have a Pilsner?" The guy behind the bar doesn't know what a Pilsner is. He's just reading the bottles.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all, Phil.
He's like, this is a weird cocktail, isn't it? This Pilsner. Never heard of this before.
That's not a Stella. You definitely. You could definitely cut that.
I like that.
That's really funny.
So, Davey, as this is probably maybe the 3rd, 4th, or maybe 5th episode that you've been on the Spanish, have you perfected the accent? Let's hear it.
All right, here we go. Estrella. Textbook. The judges, they're holding up their scores. I see them.
Wait, well, hang on. Isn't Estrella Spanish, right?
Yeah, that was Spanish.
That was Spanish.
That was Spanish, yeah. That was textbook Spanish.
Sounded mega Italian, mate.
Did it? It's the Peroni I just finished.
Oh, maybe
That's obviously
it's the Peroni you finished made you sound Italian.
That's what it is. That's what
I was going to say, right, with accents, this is like a Jimmy Carr joke, isn't it? That every accent has a certain word that you can say and it'll bring out the accent in it. I think he said with Wales or Welsh, it is jacket, or whose coat's that jacket is that joke. So I wonder what it is for Spain. There must be a word that just triggers the Spanish accent.
You hear a Spanish person speak English, and you're like, "Oh, they're from Europe," but you can't isolate it. Whereas if you hear like a Italian person or a French person, you know they're French, right? Or they're Italian. But Spanish, you're just like, I guess they're from Europe. Spencer, looking at the doc, you and me have very, very similar things that we've been playing the last couple of weeks. So probably best for you to start off, and I'll just contribute where I can. But tell me, what have you been playing?
Right, so boys, my main game. Obviously, we all know I've been trying to play the Resident Evils in Time for Village. And the game I've just finished is Resident Evil 2. Granted, I've only done the Leon story so far. I still need to play as Claire. But, fuck me. What a fantastic game. Especially seeing as that game, Resident Evil 2, supports 3D audio. And I have, obviously, the Pulse headset, as we all know. So, hearing footsteps and hearing zombies in other rooms around me, you're just stood still, waiting. You're shitting yourself. There's so much where you stood still, just listening, thinking, am I safe? I think I'm safe. I'm not safe. Run. And then that's it.
So just for clarification for our listeners, you're playing the remake of Resident Evil 2. You're not playing the original Resident Evil 2, are you?
Yeah, 100% the remake.
So as you just came off Resident Evil 1, what do you think in terms of the kind of improvement that you've got? I mean, you've got what? You got 17 years difference since Resident Evil 1 remake to Resident Evil 2, which came out 2002 for Resident Evil 1 remake and 2019 for Resident Evil 2 remake. How do you feel those years have been in terms of the gameplay? Because when those two games originally launched on the PlayStation 1, there was a vast difference between Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 1. However, the core mechanics and the core way you play that game was the same.
Now, playing the remake, I did play it right off of RE1. It's hard to say. First of all, RE2, obviously because it's the remake, is beautiful. It is one of the most stunning games I've ever played. The game starts, you're in a petrol station, or a gas station if you're American, and there's blood on the floor and on the walls, and that was the most real, genuine looking blood I've seen in my life, and I thought, I just don't want to go in there. I don't want to move. This game is leaps and bounds more frightening than the first game. But the way the gameplay actually works, it's a lot more simple than the first game. The puzzles in this game, in Resident Evil 2, more or less just become find an item, it goes here. That's the puzzle. There's maybe only 2 genuine puzzles in the entirety of the game. Whereas Resident Evil 1 was puzzles galore, and I loved it because you find those puzzles, you complete them, and you think, I'm sick. I'm so smart, I've smashed this.
Well, that's what Resident Evil 1 was all about, wasn't it? That's what people always, refer to when they arc back to that title, was the complexity of the puzzles. And definitely, as you go through, as you're doing the Resident Evil titles, the puzzles do get easier. Was there even a puzzle in Resident Evil 3?
There's nothing really. It's very much. I completely agree with you, Spence, and like what Phil's been saying too. They do, for some reason, they drop off the importance of puzzles to the game. I mean, sure, you get the standard things like in Resident Evil 2, you've got the memory games with the little safes that you find, the portable safes, and you've got the locker codes which are written on walls across the environment, and you've got the files which tell you the codes for safes and stuff like that. But outside of ones that you need to collect a certain number of items for to then combine in to create another puzzle that's above that puzzle, there's nothing like that. You've got the chess pieces which you collect around and put them in, but that's pretty much about it.
The only puzzle in Resident Evil 3 for me, was where did Carlos get his haircut? That puzzles me, man.
Oh, he's a beauty. You don't have a crush on Carlos?
He's the sex appeal in the game, but that haircut, man.
Oh, he could do whatever he wants to me. When you play that game, Spencer, I reckon you'll have a crush.
I've seen the front cover. I'm assuming he's the bloke on the front.
He is.
I would love it after Spencer plays the game the next time he does this podcast, because for our listeners, we all join on to Discord and we can all see each other. Spencer turns up with a Carlos haircut.
I would. I've seen the front cover. I've seen what he looks like. He is a beautiful man.
Do it.
I'll be like Jill for you. If you can look like Carlos, I'll dress like Jill all day.
That's insane. That's insane, but I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it.
If we ever go to cosplay again, maybe Carlos, Jill, and I'll have to go as Lady Dimitrescu.
Nah, surely RE3. Surely you'd be Nemesis, mate.
What? Because I'm so stacked. Cheers, Spence.
What, as opposed to being 8 feet tall? What do you
And
mean?
huge tits.
9 foot, thank you.
9 foot, yeah.
How many ratchets was that?
I don't know how many ratchets. Clanks. It's slipping my mind at the moment. I know it's
I was going to say, you have to be a real PlayStation fan to know those facts.
I know. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm having an off day at the moment. I mean, I know that's general PlayStation knowledge, so I'm sorry I'm slipping on that.
One thing that I kind of didn't like in comparison to the original game, because obviously I just played that, is the ink ribbons. Because I played the game on normal. I probably will play on hardcore at some point, but it's not now because I'm trying to rush through all the Resident Evils. But you don't need ink ribbons to save in Resident Evil 2 if you play on normal. Or easy, but I play on normal. And I liked the ink ribbons because I ended Resident Evil 2 with 44 saves. Because every single time I did a little task or I got an item or I solved the puzzle, I'd just go right back and save because it was no risk. Whereas in Resident Evil 1, you have to choose your saves. You have to pick when you think you've done enough progress that it warrants saving it.
I've been playing Resident Evil 2 as well. And I've been playing it for review, and the review should come out the day after this podcast goes live, so on the Thursday. I played it on hardcore. Now, my original time playing this game through, I played it on standard, just like you did, Spence. And I gotta say, hardcore is a much better experience. I know that's how you played it, Phil, for your first time.
It's a much truer experience. And when Spencer made that statement, I had quite a confused look on my face, right? And the reason for that is I've never played Resident Evil 2 on normal. Even when I played it originally, I remember us having ink ribbons and saving.
The original Resident Evil 2 on PS1 had ink ribbons. And saving.
Well, there we go then. So we may have played it on normal at that point, but on the remake, I definitely played it on the harder setting where you needed ink ribbons. Yeah. So that's why I looked a bit confused then.
Just like you said, Phil, it is the true experience. And I remember when you go to fight, I won't spoil too much, so I'll only say things that happen in the early portion of the game for our audience, just in case there's somebody who hasn't got around to playing this game yet. The first boss you encounter, which is William Birkin in his first form, you get into that boss fight, and it's a little arena. And I went into there with 8 shotgun rounds and about 20 rounds of pistol ammo. And I thought, okay, and a grenade. And I thought, okay, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I died in that fight 5 times, running out of ammo, before I then realised I've just got to knife him. I've got no choice but to bait him and knife him to kill him, because I don't have enough, because I've killed too many enemies, even though I left pretty much that entire area above completely overrun with zombies.
You know, that boss fight does give you opportunities, like, throughout different areas of it to pick up ammo, but even with that, I do agree, it is a hard boss fight, and you do need a lot of ammo to actually take him down, and it took me quite a few times to sort of down that boss. But sort of thinking back to Resident Evil, like, to not have that threat of losing your save,
Yeah.
for me, that isn't Resident Evil.
It's not.
No.
I agree. It
For me,
completely
spending an hour working out, those puzzles and getting to a certain point, that's what Resident Evil is. And always feeling like I might die and lose everything. That's
Yeah.
what that's what makes a game scary for me. So without that element, I don't think Resident Evil is scary. If I'm just invincible, and I think this is what we've talked about multiple times on this podcast, if I've got unlimited ammo and I can save at every point, who cares?
Oh, I mean, I'll say I definitely didn't have unlimited ammo. I was far from unlimited ammo. I mean, late game, I probably had quite a lot. But early game, I had none. I was killing everything.
Wait until you play Resident Evil 3. Don't play that on normal.
Resident Evil 3 difficulty gets a bit nuts, right? Because, I platinumed that game. I played it through like 8 times. The first one I did was on normal, because I always play my games on normal to start with. That's what the developer intended. But then when I ratcheted it up and took it up to the next level above normal, it was a much better experience.
Yeah.
And then I thought, I'm going to take it one step further. I'm going to go one step beyond, right? Go to like Super Saiyan level 3. And it was too much. And I was just like, this is ridiculous.
The boss fights in Resident Evil 3 get super difficult on the higher difficulties, like, as you'd imagine, right? But they are a massive step up. I found myself doing those a lot, right? I normally struggle on boss fights to like learn all the intricacies of all the rotations. But when it came to the harder difficulties on Resident Evil 3, I would advise you, they are very difficult. But the standard game I found quite normal to play through, because I always play on those sort of higher difficulties.
I will say the benefit to RE3, I think I spoke to you, Davey, about in the past, is that you said that the stories for Carlos and Jill are relatively the same, so you don't really need to play as both characters.
You can't. It's one set. So Resident Evil 3 is one set story. So whereas with Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2, you have that choice between which character you choose, and things play out slightly differently, and you have a slightly different version of events. Or in Resident Evil 2, it's quite different in terms of those events. Resident Evil 3 is one set linear story. And to me, it makes it a lot cleaner in terms of the story than with Resident Evil 1 and 2, where there's a lot of kind of plot crossover and a lot of how does this work,
Yeah, how do both people have to solve the same puzzle?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas in Resident Evil 3, you don't have anything like that. Now, you do have character swapping, and they do swap at certain points in the story, but it's a linear progression, just like it was in the original game on PS1.
Right, well, that works out really well for me, because the thing is, I've allotted myself time for each Resident Evil. If I beat every Resident Evil within a 2-week period, then I will have all of them finished by Village. So now I have this weekend to beat Claire's story, or until next weekend, I suppose, and then obviously I'm going to do the second run. I'm probably not going to bump the difficulty, but I'll do the second run. And then with RE3, because they're the same thing, I could do a normal run and then do a hardcore run. So I've already played RE1 and 2. I'm still going to do Claire. Then I've got 3 to play, then 4, then 7. I've already written down my predictions of how I think I'm going to order the Resident Evil games.
Oh, so like a tier list.
Oh, hello.
A tier list of the ones I'm going to be playing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. I've written down how I think I'm going to think about those games.
Listener, we got ourselves a little kind of mini bonus topic in this, because I never expected us to go this long on this, but give us your interpretation of what your tier list is going to be before you play them.
Right. So the predictions I wrote down were as number 1. Oh, I'll start at number 5.
Start at number 5. Build your way up.
Yeah. Number 5 was going to be Resident Evil 4, and I stand by that. I fully think I'll like RE4 the least, because I know it's potentially the most action heavy out of the ones I'm going to be playing. 4 will be RE7. 3, RE3, quite apt. 2 will be RE1, and 1 will be RE2. And I had a bit of an argument with myself about 1 and 2, about thinking, because I really, truly loved Resident Evil 1, and I think Resident Evil 1 might be a better game, but Resident Evil 1 didn't make me feel the way that Resident Evil 2 did. Resident Evil 2 made me not want to leave the room. I was sat there shitting my pants. And that's the reason I've had to put number 2 ahead of number 1. Granted, that's with the remake. I'm sure if I played the original games, 1 and 2, I would put 1 above.
Well, I think if you played original Resident Evil 1 and original Resident Evil 2, you'd say that Resident Evil 2 is the better game, because it is. If you were comparing original Resident Evil 2 to Resident Evil Remake, that would be a hard choice. That would be a hard choice for most fans. Most fans are kind of split in three camps. They're split between Resident Evil 4, which I just cannot understand that, Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2. Those are the main kind of three camps that most people kind of fit into. Phil, what is your rating on Spencer's little list there, and would you change that at all?
Well, when you were saying action heavy, like I know we're not taking into consideration Resident Evil 5 here, but
no, yeah, those are the most action heavy. I played those.
That is the action game in the Resident Evil series, and
yeah,
it holds a special place in my heart for Resident Evil because it's a game me and Davey played online multiplayer co-op, and absolutely loved the game. We played it through to completion, and we got the platinum in that game. We didn't get the online trophies because they were an absolute nightmare. But yeah, that definitely holds a special place for me. When it comes to Resident Evil, I am a traditionalist. I am a Resident Evil 2 fan. I very much love the original, but that is completely filled with nostalgia. I think Davey asked me sort of earlier on in the week which was my favourite title and why, but it's hard to distinguish the two, right? I love the remake of Resident Evil 2, and I love the original, but the original is because of the nostalgia, and it's the time I played the game, the people I played the game with, But what I can tell you is that if I'm taking both games from Resident Evil 2 out of all the series, that is my favourite one to play through, regardless if it's the remake or the original.
For me, I've made it pretty clear. My favourite is Resident Evil 1. It always will be. I think it's just the best in terms of its actual design. I think it's just perfect. Way better than any other entry. It's got perfect pacing. Literally, there isn't a dull moment in that game. It's all phenomenal. Moving on from that mini topic that we've delved into for far too long.
We've got into one game for Spencer.
Yeah.
I know.
I've played a lot this week as well. I've played quite a lot.
Spencer, don't tell me you've played Death Stranding as well.
I've not, mate.
Okay. I'm calming down.
That'd be long. We'd be 2 hours in before we got to anyone else's
We'd have to finish
games.
the podcast after what Spencer's been playing.
I know. Can you imagine? And that's been it for this episode of In PS We Trust.
We've got Potatochief waiting, for a later topic.
The problem is, Spencer, you pressed the Resident Evil button.
I did,
and as soon as you press the Resident Evil button, we're going off. So I'm sorry, listener, but to be fair, we're 12 episodes into this podcast, and we've been mentioning Resident Evil since probably episode 2 to this level. So if you're not used to this by now, then I'm sorry, but it's on you. So Spencer, what else have you been playing?
So another game that I've been playing. Granted, we have 2 weeks in between these podcasts. Everything I've been playing on this list is this week. Last week I didn't really play much of anything. So all this week, the other game I've been playing is Call of Duty Cold War. And the reason I've been playing it is because they added a brand new mode, which was a mode added on to the Dead Ops Zombies mode called Dead Ops Solo Advanced, I think it was called. And basically, that lets you progress through Dead Ops, but then when you die, you get the restart again on the round you died on. And it gives you a fate, a random fate, except you kind of get to choose, so it's a bit cheese. And the reason I was playing that is because me and you, Davey, beforehand, were playing this in co-op together, and we were having an absolute nightmare trying to get the final trophy we needed, which was to get to round 64 in Dead Ops. And thanks to this new solo game mode that they've added, I've got the platinum.
I want to say a big In PS We Trust round of applause to Spencer, because that platinum is at a 0.1% rarity. Well done,
Let's
mate.
go. Thank you, mate.
I'll give you a little clap for that. Well done.
Thank you.
I've done the same thing. So, spurred on by your success, I thought it's time for me to do this. And I got it the following day. And I got to say, it was hard as balls.
It was hard.
Can you imagine the frustration if we had to restart that every single time we died? The amount of hours we would have wasted on that. So having that solo advanced start was phenomenal.
Yeah, 100%. If that mode was never added to the game, Call of Duty Cold War would be right next to Last of Us on games that I will never platinum. just because that last trophy was abysmal. Absolutely abysmal. Absolute time sink that just sucked to play. Like, it's a fun game mode, but it beats you down. It beats you down to a pulp.
It does. It does. Now, the biggest question is, have you now saved yourself like 100 gigs of storage space on your PlayStation 5?
I uninstalled it, frame one. The trophy popped up, and I was in party chat with you. So I was literally just going to quit and uninstall right then, and you went, no, just see how far you can get, mate. And I was just like, oh, fine. Yeah, okay. So I just kept playing. I think I got around 67 or something. And I was just like, why am I still playing this? And so as soon as I died, before I even got to the main menu or anything, I was just like, right, home button, uninstall. Look, I then immediately went to my system settings, looked at my storage, and thought, that's a sight of beauty. I now have 400 gig free on my PS5.
It's crazy how much room that game takes up. And I gotta say, I didn't stick to what I told you to do. So when I platinumed mine, and that platinum trophy popped, I waited about 30 seconds just to make sure, right, that it was going to sync with the network, right? And then I was like, gone. It's gone. I was like, just quit the mode immediately, end it, don't care about my score, quit, uninstall, done. And like you said, now I got more space and I know what to do. It's fantastic.
It's blessed. It's absolutely blessed. The beauty of Call of Duty, granted, it's a huge game, but they did let you partition it, which is very nice. So you could choose to just have the zombies installed. So that's what I had whilst I was trying to get that trophy. So my game only really took up about 70 gig. Granted, just for zombies, that is a stupid amount. But it's nice that you don't have to have the entirety of the game installed. It is quite nice.
It's almost like they've been listening to a previous couple of our podcasts, because that's definitely something we've suggested multiple times, isn't it? Where they can install certain parts of the game depending on what you're playing.
It is, yeah. We've 100% talked about that in the past. It's good. It's a good system. And I hope that other games take heed. But another game I've been playing, boys. My girlfriend she's like, we need to spend more time together. So I thought, well, I still want to play some games. So I bought A Way Out on PlayStation. And A Way Out comes with a Friends Pass. So I gave my girlfriend the Friends Pass and we've played A Way Out together. And I also got the Platinum for that. Within 2 days of getting my Call of Duty Platinum, I got another Platinum. And that feels good.
Double Platinum weeks are special weeks.
Yeah,
they
feels
really
good.
are. It's like a few episodes ago where I had like 5 Platinums in a row on my trophy list, and you feel like you got the biggest dick in the planet. It's such a good feeling. And so having a double plat week, oh, blessed. So what number of Platinums are you at now, Spence? Because you've been racking away at Platinum since we started this podcast.
Yeah, I'm currently sitting on 12, and I'm hoping to go up. But granted, that's 10 Platinums since PS5's launch.
It's fantastic. And they're not even, well...
Yeah, one of them's a bit...
Okay, so yeah, take out the My Name is Mayo and My Name is Mayo 2, and you've got
I don't have My Name is Mayo 2, mate.
Not yet.
Didn't buy it.
Not yet.
Didn't buy it. Not yet.
30 quid.
30 quid. Jesus.
No, it wasn't 30 quid. It wasn't 30 quid.
Spencer, you know we can check your trophies, yeah?
Check my trophies, mate. Check my trophies.
And the listeners can if they like.
Yeah, of course they can. YTS Ben Pie. Go on.
Have a look. See how you do. Me and Phil played A Way Out.
I was just about to say that we actually bought A Way Out as well. Turns out we're not as compatible as Spencer and his girlfriend, I suppose, because we played it and just binned it off. I think we argued too much, didn't we?
I think so. I think it was just one of those things where when you're so deep into playing Resident Evil 5 for the Platinum and you're punching boulders left, right, and center, using fight sticks to do it, you know, one of you is being the bitch and playing as Sheva, and one of you is playing as Chris. I was always Chris. You get into this position where one of you have to split off to do tasks, and I just can't trust Phil to do anything on his own, and that's the problem.
The thing is, when you split off for tasks and you're always constantly waiting for the other person just to catch up to you, it just gets really frustrating. And then I think, do you know what? I might just play some League.
I think that's why we weren't very good at Overcooked together, Phil. I think that's why we shouldn't ever play that game together. So what's the last game that you've been playing then, Spence?
Right, yeah. The last game I've been playing, and I am absolutely enthralled with this game.
Another Resident Evil title.
Imagine,
here we go.
Imagine.
I've been playing Resident Evil Revelations.
Resident Evil Resistance. It's Mortal Kombat. What a fantastic game.
Superb. Absolutely superb.
Basically, any chance I've gotten to play it, I've been playing it. Same every single time I'm free for a bit, I'm like, yo, Davey, you want some games? And then Davey's like, yeah. And then we play some Mortal Kombat.
I think this has been the final nail in the Smash coffin for me. I've been playing Smash for a long time since its release back in like 2018. I've been playing it like non-stop for that long. And then all it took was Mortal Kombat to come back into my life, and I just cannot stop playing it. And it's literally all I'm thinking about most of the time.
Yeah.
Is how can I optimize this? How can I improve my neutral? How can I do this? And I don't watch much on Twitch. I hardly watch any Twitch content at all. But every Wednesday and every Saturday, I tune in to watch the EU and US tournaments for the Open Series that PlayStation is sponsoring. And I tell you what, I find it really strange that PlayStation are supporting Mortal Kombat and having it on this kind of level of competition where they got a £20,000 prize pot, but they're not supporting Street Fighter, the one that's exclusive on their platform that they paid for. I find that really odd and really confusing.
I think the way I see it, Mortal Kombat was one of the biggest sellers on PS4.
True.
Mortal Kombat performed exceptionally well on the PlayStation, and as great as Street Fighter, it's not very good. As
Street Fighter 5 is
as
terrible.
much, yeah, it's not a great game. As much as Sony do have a stake in Street Fighter, it's not anywhere near as large a player base as Mortal Kombat is right now. Namely, Street Fighter 5. If they suddenly were like, if Sony was suddenly like, we're going to host a Street Fighter 4 tournament, I'm sure that would be huge. But I just feel like they don't have any reason to host a Street Fighter 5 tournament at the moment. The player base isn't there, and Mortal Kombat is thriving right now.
That makes sense. I suppose maybe that's the thing. I think this is one of the reasons why PlayStation 4 won the generation as hard as it did, is because they decided, do you know what we're going to do? Is we're going to siphon off the biggest fighting game on the planet in Street Fighter, make it console exclusive. And that essentially means that all your tournaments then, any multi-platform fighter, which is all of them, apart from Smash and KI, we're going to make them the PlayStation standard because it's easier, because we've already got all the setups there that are PlayStation to run Street Fighter. It's like one of the smartest ideas ever to be able to get an entire section of a community, the entire FGC, playing onto one platform.
To be fair, the FGC, in comparison to any other community that plays competitively, it's tiny.
Dwarfs, yeah.
It's tiny,
Yeah.
mate. I honestly don't think that would have came into their minds when they were arguing that deal for Capcom, that the exclusivity for like fighting games tournaments to be on PlayStation, it doesn't matter. That's small fry, in my opinion.
As much as I agree that is small fry, the largest competitive gaming scenes, the only one they really could purchase and have on their system is the FGC. They couldn't really buy the FPS scene or anything because...
Well, they have. They got COD. They got COD, don't they?
Yeah, they've got COD, but like the biggest competitive FPS game is CSGO, and that's never going to leave PC. They couldn't buy League of Legends or Dota.
Hey, maybe there's an argument for PC
Go on.
in this topic, but what I'm saying is when we're talking about console, you're talking about FIFA, you're talking about Call of Duty, and then you're talking about fighting games, aren't you? They're the three big console competitive games in my mind anyway. I think Rocket League sort of creeps in there a little bit as well. Forgive me if I'm wrong, like feel free to jump in, but I think it's sort of FIFA, COD, and then you've got the fighting games.
No, yeah, I do agree.
Well, they own all three of those. All three of those are played on PlayStation competitively.
FIFA maybe not.
So, just a bit of clarification. Just done a quick Google, and the FIFA tournaments are actually multi-platform. So they're accessible on both Xbox and PlayStation. So they don't own that. But in terms of the FGC and in terms of COD, those are definitely PlayStation based. So it's a pretty big deal. But as you said, Phil, maybe it wasn't too important in terms of the overall success of the console.
Well, like I do mean it's, it has definitely influenced, the FGC, because, going back to the tournaments that we used to go to, if we're going to a Wasteman Weekly, I'm bringing my Xbox 360. I bought an Xbox. That was the reason I started buying Xboxes, was to play fighting games, because that was always the preferred system. But, now PlayStation owning that, it definitely has to add up to some sales. And I do agree, having Mortal Kombat on that is really nice, If Mortal Kombat was exclusive to Xbox, it would be a pain point for me.
Yeah, that's quite similar to me. Like I literally have a 360 in my garage right now, and that 360, all it has on there is Skullgirls, or maybe not Skullgirls actually. It has Marvel 3, Third Strike, Street Fighter 4, and I think a Guilty Gear game, and that is all that's on my 360.
Yeah, mine has Third Strike, Street Fighter 4, and a BlazBlue. Or a BlazBlue.
Oh, BlazBlue, yeah.
That's all it has on there. But then equally, my Nintendo console just has Smash on it.
Yeah,
and
that's all it's for.
And some dance thing that Laura's got. But, got to keep her happy.
So, Phil, with your games, apart from the dance game that you've been playing that you say is Laura's, what have you been playing?
I thought you were going to make a joke there, mate. But, I have actually been playing a little bit of Mortal Kombat. Not so competitively with you guys. I did jump on, but I got ruined, unfortunately. I've just been trying to pick it up. Been playing a little bit of the story. Been finding myself sort of driven towards Baraka or Kotal Khan as the characters I've been playing quite recently. But really enjoying the story, Fighting games, they're never big on story, but I think NetherRealm, they do it justice.
NetherRealm are fantastic at making their stories good.
And when I say justice, I mean Injustice. Injustice's story was great. Injustice 2's story was great. And this new iteration of Mortal Kombat, I'm loving. I'm really into it.
So I remember playing the game when it first came out in March 2019. The story was the first thing I did on it. And I couldn't believe how long the story was and how exceptional it actually is. Now, like you said, with Injustice, I should have had my bar set to that level, because Injustice 2 story mode was phenomenal. It was actually an amazing comic book movie. And I thought, Jesus Christ, this is a fighting game. I just came off playing Street Fighter 5 like a couple of months before, and Street Fighter 5 there wasn't a story. You finished arcade mode and you got a slideshow of 4 slides, and it was like, Ryu is now searching for his next competitor. And you're like, what the fuck was this? Whereas in Mortal Kombat, you get fully voiced, it's fully acted, fully mocapped. It's sensational. Absolutely sensational.
So with Blanca, it's as thin as you're searching for Dan and Sakura in Street Fighter. Like, Capcom have got to work on that. When it comes to Mortal Kombat, it's actually been incredible. I've really been enjoying the story. As I said, I've been picking up and finding some affinity with Baraka and Kotal Khan. How about you boys? Who have you been sort of drawn to when playing the game?
Joker, mate. Joker is cracked. The range on his little staff is insane.
Who did you main originally, Spence? Because that's only from Ultimate that you've picked up Joker, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yes, it is. In the original game, when it first came out, when I was playing it, I played Cassie Cage. And I'll tell you why. She's Peng.
You can say that freely now. Your girlfriend's not in the room.
Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. She doesn't listen to this.
She's probably the same as my wife. She's probably sick of hearing your voice.
I said this last week that Laura doesn't listen to it. Do you know what she did?
She listened.
Listen to it.
Listen to it. Oh my god.
Who's her favourite host?
Obviously.
Me.
Spencer.
Yeah,
Spencer. She said he's got. Hey. She said he's got a lovely voice.
Oh, thank you, Laura, for when you listen to this.
She's not wrong. For me, I don't mean to, but every single fighting game I pick up, I always seem to play the poster child. For Street Fighter, I play Ryu. For BlazBlue, I play, I don't even know the fucking name of the character. The guy who's on the front cover.
Ragnar.
Maybe. I don't even know.
It's Ragnar. What? It's Ragnar and Jin.
Is it?
The two characters in BlazBlue, yeah. The red and the blue.
Oh. No. Well, yeah. Okay. I don't know, but yes,
mate,
I play them.
You just go top tier. You just look. You just subconsciously go on Twitter and find out what everyone's playing. And then go, do you know what? Who's the best? Who's broken as fuck, right? So I'll just go in at that level.
Well, It's funny you say this because in Street Fighter, Ryu's always been mid-tier or high-tier at best. Granted, now when I'm not playing Street Fighter, he's actually busted, which is typical, right? But when I did play Street Fighter religiously, Ryu was never that great. Now, I play in Mortal Kombat Scorpion. So the most generic character outside of Sub-Zero, one of those two characters is going to be the most generic characters you can play. But turns out Scorpion to me just feels perfect in terms of the tools he has and his ability to be able to close space while keeping safe. And his combo game just looks stylish, even if it's not that difficult to perform. It's all about Scorpion and the Terminator. So of course I have to play Terminator. Christ, why wouldn't I?
Davey, let me ask you, who's top tier in the new Mortal Kombat? Who are all the pros playing when I've been watching Twitch?
So the pros are playing at the moment. They're playing Jackie, Geras, Joker. He's a top 3 character. So Scorpion is ranked in mid-high tier, and Terminator is ranked in low-mid tier. So neither of them are particularly amazing, but they're good enough to get the job done. And with Mortal Kombat, I gotta say, the balancing on it is pretty damn good. It's not perfect because no fighting game is ever going to be perfect, really. But, I mean, you see the stuff that like Jackie can do, who's a top tier, and she can literally whittle your entire health bar within a couple of seconds. Someone like Terminator or Scorpion, it's about either having the mix with Terminator and playing mind games with people, or with Scorpion, it's just about having a decent neutral. Both of those differences in character I just really enjoy.
I cannot wait till we get some fan mail from the FGC just calling you out that Scorpion's proper top tier.
If you want to play any of us, then you're more than welcome. We're still kind of learning the game. We're still pretty early into it, but I got to say we're pretty sick, all right?
Yeah, we're goated, mate. We're sick.
We're at that point now where you go to your first tournament and go 0-2, and then you realise that you're shit, right? But we're at that point where we haven't done that, so we're starting to think we're actually gods at the game. So if you want to play us, you're more than welcome on PlayStation Network. You can find me at SSJ Davey. That's my thing is just SSJ Davey everywhere, so you can find it. Spence, yours is YTS Spenpie, isn't it?
It is, mate. Yes, it is.
So you're more than welcome to come and add us on PlayStation Network, and we can have a few games. That'd be a bit of fun, especially if you can teach us something about the game that we don't already know. Although I think we're pretty much goated, so we should be fine.
Don't add me.
Phil, mate, you'll catch up soon. You need to play with us more. You've got PS Plus now. We can all play together.
Talking of PS Plus, another game I've been playing, because you guys arc on about how good PS Plus is. So I thought I'd delve in to one of the free games that you get with PS Plus, because you always sell it as if it's such a good offering. Do you know what else I've been playing this week?
Remnant from the Ashes?
No. I chose...
Maquette.
We think it's Marquette, don't we?
So with Marquette, that's the game that last episode I was saying that I was really interested in checking out, but I just haven't had the time yet. I'm really interested to hear about this.
So this is a mini game from the developers Graceful Decay. $15.99 if you do want to buy it, if you don't subscribe to PS Plus like I do now. It's a PS5 exclusive. This is a first-person retrospective puzzle game. So it's a building game. So you have this base in the center, which you can manipulate, and then when you go outside this central area, the things in the central area affect the things on the outside. I don't know if I'm explaining it, to its fullest, but that's the game. So, for example, if I pick up a key outside of the central area, it's big, and I can bring that key into the central area and make it a bridge. And then when I walk outside of the central area, it's now increased in size, and I can walk across that bridge. You can use objects. Are you getting this?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm following. Sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm following,
so
but
far.
my head hurts.
But yeah, my head feels like it's about to explode. But yeah, I'm kind of following it.
Once you do one interaction, you do get it, right? But it is a puzzle game, and I played it for an hour because I thought I'd invest some time into PS Plus, because I thought, the boys, they spent their hard-earned money on me getting PS Plus, and they've been raving on about how great the games are. So I thought I'd spend some time and play Marquette.
So that hour then, how would you rate it? You actually enjoying it, or is it a load of shit?
2 out of 10 is all right.
Oh, really? That low?
Oh, wow. That's actually really bad.
What I don't understand with you, Phil, is that you've got probably the worst choice in everything you do. So you've got the choice at the moment of Final Fantasy VII Remake, right, on PlayStation Plus, let alone the PlayStation Collection, which has 20 of the best games of last generation. And you say, do you know what? I'm going to test PlayStation Plus with Marquette. Right? Like, how does that even make sense?
Okay, so you bought me Marquette, and you've been mentioning that I don't play enough PS5. So I thought, what is the PS5 offering on PS Plus? And that happened to be Marquette. So that was the game I spent an hour in, and it was okay. It got me through the hour, but I wouldn't go back to that game. And
Fair.
if I had paid $15.99, it would have been a waste of money for me.
That's fair. I can't argue.
Do you know, it's something that I was really interested in looking at the trailer. I'll probably check it out from what you've said, just because that sounds quite interesting. And maybe, like you said, maybe after an hour, I'll be like, do you know what? Fuck this game. I suppose that's the benefit of PlayStation Plus, is that you can have these kind of unique experiences and then think, do you know what? I've had enough. Or sometimes you'll try it and think, bloody hell, that was great, like with Man-Eater or something.
Well, what I thought I would do, seeing as you have forked out the money for me to play PS Plus, and you have forced me into this situation of having these free games, I thought, why not play them? You know, I have a platform now to talk about them, and that was the PS5 offering. I think next week, you know, I've got 3 other games, as well as Destruction All-Stars. So each week, I'm going to choose a game from PS Plus and spend an hour in it and just give you my honest opinion on it and see if the money that you guys spent was worth it.
I appreciate that. I'll say I had to look at Maquette as well. I didn't have any interest in the game until I looked at the trophy list.
Oh, the trophies are really easy. I'm racking them up. I'm catching you up, Spence, without even trying.
Mate, you think I've been trying? I bought My Name is Mayor.
Get on Maquette, because that's the only reason to play the game.
That's exactly what I'm
sorry,
gonna do.
Graceful Decay. You can unfollow me on Twitter.
No, it's really good. I tell you what, that's a great little initiative, that is, Phil, for you to be able to play another game. That's a great idea.
I'm going to spend an hour in each game and then give you some feedback.
So as you know, listener, normally we dive into 3 topics of discussion, but today we got 2 major things that we want to go through. So the first is we're going to be going into the Microsoft deal with Bethesda. It's finally gone through. Now we do have a special guest joining the show in Potatochief, who will be joining us a little bit later on. And our second topic we'll be going through today is going to be a look back at the PlayStation 4 generation and giving our top 5 games. Each of them will be given a score, and by the end of the episode we will have a definitive list of a top 5 of PlayStation 4 games. But first, before we dive into those separate topics, we do have some little bits of mini news that we find interesting. So the first thing for myself is there's been an announcement of a new Aliens game. Now, Aliens doesn't exactly have the best name in terms of video games in recent years due to Colonial Marines, which came out and completely destroyed all hope of us ever getting a decent Aliens Marine game. So, when there was footage shown of Aliens Fireteam, which is a 3-player PvE co-op shooter by Cold Iron Studios, it really piqued my interest. This game looks sensational. Have you guys seen this trailer, or do you even care about the Alien license like I do?
To be honest, mate, Aliens, apart from the newer movies with Fassbender in, I've never been a fan. I can hear Joe Thomas switching off the podcast right now.
I nearly switched off the podcast, to be honest, with that statement. So you don't like Alien at all except for Prometheus?
I just never really got into
after.
like Aliens when it was big, when I was younger. I only really got into Prometheus and Covenant.
Yeah, Covenant, yeah.
And I really like those movies. I actually
I
own
like them
them
too.
both on 4K Blu-ray. But before that and the games around it, never been a fan of it.
I used to be quite a big. I wouldn't say I'm quite a big alien fan. I've seen Aliens. Let's put it there. and I played, what was it, the AVP game that came out years ago.
On Xbox 360 and PS3. That one? Do you mean that one?
Yeah, I played that. That was fun. I'd quite like to play this game, but mostly just because Phil has PS Plus now. There's 3 of us, and it's a free-player PvE game. But that is really my only connection to this game, is that us 3 could play it together. It being an Aliens license, it is what it is.
I mean, for me, Aliens is my favorite movie of all time. For me, Aliens in video games takes me back all the way to the PlayStation 1 generation, playing Alien Trilogy. I love that game, which is basically just a Doom mod. And then I played so much time on AVP and AVP 2 on the PC. And I played, like you said, Spence, the AVP game on PS3. Absolutely love that game. So I'm hyped. I'm hyped with anything with Aliens until the reality of life comes crashing down around me and it turns out the game's a load of shit. I'm waiting with bated breath, but it comes out in summer of 2021, so we'll keep a close eye on it on the podcast and hope to God that it turns out as well as it looks, because at the moment it looks phenomenal.
So guys, one of the things that I've recently discovered is that I have 43 days of holiday this year, which is mental.
Ooh, that's huge. Yeah,
it's obviously
crazy.
down to COVID. My company allowed me to sort of carry over the holiday from last year. I think I took maybe 7 days. I think we get 25 a year. So I carried over 18. I'm sure someone's going to correct me on the mathematics here, but ultimately this year I have 43 days of holiday, and I'm going to book some of that time off for games. As
That's
you
good.
and the listeners know, I've pre-ordered Resident Evil Village. That comes out on the 7th of May, as well as Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart on the 11th of June. And amazingly, I've looked this up, both of those games come out on a Friday. So I've booked a long weekend to be able to play those games and hopefully give you some feedback on future podcasts.
That's really good, mate. That's actually sick. Davey, mate, you should be able to correct him on his maths if it's wrong. You're quite a big fan of GCSE maths, right?
Love a bit of GCSE maths.
How much purple paint did I create?
You were way out of line on the purple paint. Absolutely way out of line on that. But in terms of your simple arithmetic, which you just did there, seemed absolutely fine. I got to say, I've done exactly the same thing as you. I haven't carried over as many days as you have. I certainly don't have 43 days off this year. But I do have a good 30 odd to take. And so I've taken a long weekend for Resident Evil 8. But that's the only time I've taken off so far. What about yourself, Spence? Have you got any time off away from college or anything?
Well, I have my half terms, obviously. I don't have full 9 to 5 days like you boys might. I just have maybe like 2 lessons a day, and then I'm free. Like tomorrow, today is Friday. I don't have college on Fridays, so I just always have Fridays off. I have long weekends every weekend. That's, it's blessed. It's blessed. But yeah, I just get my half terms. I have long weekend, and then on a Tuesday I finish early. I finish at like 12, so I basically all day Tuesday. Wednesday I don't start till 1 p.m. I got time for games, boys. I got time for games.
Well, in the document, I've put 2 things that have caught my eye, and one of them is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredders Revenge.
So what are your thoughts on looking at that? Were you immediately taken back to your early 30s when you were playing that on the SNES?
Of course, mate. Like, one of my favourite genres of video games is side-scrolling beat-em-ups. I'm a child of the 80s. So I grew up on Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, Alien Storm. These were the classics that I played, right? And when I'm seeing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and I'm hearing that tune, it's taking me right back. I cannot wait. I was a big fan of the Streets of Rage reiteration on Switch. I absolutely loved that. Played that through to death.
Do you know what? I still haven't played that, Streets of Rage 4. It's on my list of things I need to play, and I haven't come around to it yet.
But what I will warn you is, games are different now. If you're expecting that high-level, story-driven AAA title, you ain't getting it from a side-scrolling beat-em-up. You're going in and hammering B, or X, or whatever you want to do, right? You're hammering punch, and that's all you're doing, and you're walking right. And that's all those games are. And that's what makes them fun. I cut my teeth. I'm going into Newport, skipping a bit of school on the train, and going in and playing Simpsons Arcade on a broken arcade machine. I love side-scrolling beat-em-ups, boys. One of my favourite games of all times, and I've got the original cartridge with the original Super Nintendo box and booklet, is Spider-Man Maximum Carnage. What a game. So yeah, something like this gets me excited. This is what I live for.
I was exactly the same as you. I saw that reveal and I thought, my God, they've done it. They've just recaptured exactly what we want. All we need now is the X-Men 4-player arcade game. We need that in there. Where it's like, welcome to die. That's what he says.
I think they say something similar in Altered Beast, don't they?
Oh, yeah, I love Altered Beast. I love Altered Beast. I remember there's a little story of Altered Beast, if you remember Davey. Davey, I would always tell Davey how great a game Altered Beast was, and he would shit on it every time. And it turns out, the entire time, he was just thinking of the wrong game.
Every episode we do have an admission of Davey and his gaming history. I think this is another one.
This is definitely episode 12's Davey omission from the past. Yeah, so it turns out I haven't played Altered Beast before, but I thought I had. And so I shat on it for about 5 years. And turns out I've never played it. So that's something to tick off the list at some point eventually.
Fantastic game. For me, boys, my beat 'em up history. I saw this trailer as well. I literally just watched it before this podcast. It looks fantastic. The fact they use the exact same art style from the original series, the same theme, it makes you feel good. And I am a massive beat 'em ups fan as well. I play Streets of Rage. I don't think I played the first one. I played the second one. That was my go-to. And a game I'm surprised neither of you mentioned is Double Dragon. I played the hell out of Double Dragon.
I never played Double Dragon.
Never, any of them?
No, never. They're free on, I think they're free on Nintendo Switch Online service, aren't they?
They are. The first and second one are, yeah.
Yeah, but I've just never played them. I don't know why. I've heard they're fantastic, but I just never have.
They are. Double Dragon 2 is fantastic. And then on the Xbox 360, they released Double Dragon Neon, which was the new Double Dragon game. And I bought that game and I loved it. Double Dragon is amazing. I love beat 'em ups. I love beat 'em ups as well.
You just love mashing buttons. We know that. That's why you got My Name's Mayo.
Loves to mash.
I mean, yeah, but
He loves the mash. He fucking loves the mash.
I think with Altered Beast, though, I've just looked it up, and the catchphrase was "Welcome to your doom." I don't. You wouldn't have remembered
nice.
that, Davey, but.
But Streets of Rage and Double Dragon were my main beat 'em ups. I didn't play any. I didn't go to an arcade. It was after that time. I wish I could have just played the beat 'em up in an arcade, but I just never did.
I say arcade. It was Newport Arcade. There was one arcade game there. Everything else was selling,
Gamblers.
guns and drugs and things like that. It's Newport. Come on. But what I was going to say, guys, you load into Turtles in Time, or you load into the new Turtles Shredders Revenge. Who's your turtle? Who are you picking?
Why didn't I expect this
Especially because potentially this might be on PS Plus. This might be online. We might be able to play together. I really hope you're not picking my turtle.
So I guess I'm going to have to go first, aren't I? Right? So for me, it comes down to two different turtles. And I think no matter which one of these two I say, I think unless you pick Donatello, right? If you pick Donatello, then you're just being difficult for the sake of being difficult, aren't you? You're just trying to be different picking Donatello. No one's picking him.
Don't say it, please.
So it's going to be either Michelangelo or Raphael.
There we
right?
go. The cool ones, right? The top.
I knew Raph. I knew you'd say Raph.
I'm going to go Raphael because he's the cool one. He's the one in the movie in the trench coat.
He's got size.
He's the one
for God's
everyone
sake.
likes. So you're Raphael in this group. You're Raphael.
Or I'll quite happily be Michelangelo. He's a party dude. I'm quite happily take that role. I also got a little fond spot for Leonardo. I think he's overlooked. I think he's definitely overlooked. He's the leader. Blue's my favourite colour. And he's got a staff. I mean, his staff's going to fuck you up.
No,
he doesn't have a staff. He has two swords.
Oh,
Leonardo.
yeah, cool. Sorry, I'm thinking of... Sorry.
Donnie has a staff.
Sorry. My bad. My
you can't
bad.
cut that out.
It's
can't cut
Leonardo leads. Donatello...
Donnie smacks him up with a staff.
Donatello does machines. Michelangelo is a party dude. And I can't remember what Raphael is. But
Raph just sulks in the corner, mate.
Raph just got size. But
so who are you picking, Davey? Who are you picking?
If I had to pick out of the two, I'll pick Michelangelo just because nunchucks are cool as fuck.
Spence?
Oh, I hate that. All right. As a kid, my favourite was always Leonardo. Just because, again, same as Davey, blue is my favorite color. Swords are cool, man. 2 katanas, just like, yeah, that's sick. Plus, he's the only one actually. Well, him and Raph are the only one actually like stabbing fuckers. You know, like Donatello's gonna knock you out. Yeah, Leonardo's killing you.
Can you imagine
know what I
you
mean?
getting smacked with a nunchuck?
Well, I'd rather get smacked with a nunchuck than stabbed with a sword, mate.
Yeah, two katanas take off your head, like. Or a
Yeah, what do you
nunchuck.
mean?
Oh, I'm a bit bruised.
True. But at least you don't have to live with the regret of being knocked out by a nunchuck by a turtle, right? By a human-sized turtle. You have to then wake up the next day and be like, Jesus Christ, I just got fucking laid out by a
Mate,
turtle. Wearing
if
a little
Leonardo-
mask. Why is he hiding his
Huh.
identity? Like,
I mean, yeah,
he's just
that's
a
fair
giant
point.
turtle. Like,
Yeah,
I just
agree,
got
that's a fair
knocked
point.
out by a fucking nunchuck, right? Whereas you're dead otherwise. You got nothing to worry about. You're just like, well, no one will know. They'd be like, there's been a random stabbing on the street here.
Here we go, guys. Leonardo leads. Donatello does machines. Raphael is cool but rude. Michelangelo is a party dude.
Okay.
Is that his trait? His trait is cool
That's
but
what
rude.
they say.
So,
And,
like,
and in
Phil.
brackets, give me a break.
Oh, nice.
Oh well. Yeah, mine as a kid it'd be Leonardo, but then like after watching it as a teenager, well, like young teenager, it'd be Mike as well. So it's a bit peak.
So you...
I'd play Leo. I'd happily play Leo. I'd happily play Leo if us three were playing.
Well, I've always been Leonardo fan, like through and through.
Oh shit.
I'll take the RAF grenade. I was just jumping on that because I thought everyone else would go for RAF. I'll jump on that in a
Mate,
heartbeat.
I've never liked Raph. I've never liked Raphael.
That's fine. I'll go Raphael. I am
You
more
take
than
Raph?
happy to do that.
Yeah, you take Raph, I'll take Michelangelo, and then Phil's Leonardo.
So who gets Donatello? Is it Potatochief? Is it you know?
The
Is it
bin.
my missus?
The bin
The
gets,
bin
gets
gets
in where
Donatello.
he belongs. He belongs in the bin. Yeah, he can stay in the back just fucking around with machines, do whatever he does with his giant bloody donging staff. He can just fuck off in the background. No one's going to worry about him. No one's going to miss him. Just call him when he needs something fixed, innit? That's all he's for. Okay, so the first topic of discussion that we'll be going into today is the Bethesda news. Phil Spencer was on a roundtable discussion talking about the Bethesda deal, which has now gone through. Now, normally on this podcast, we'll sit there and quite happily shit on Xbox left, right, and centre. And half the time, I don't even know what the console's called. But we thought it would be a good idea to get an expert in, somebody who does know his Xbox stuff. So, introducing to the podcast, our first guest on a live topic with us is Lewis. So, Lewis, give us a little bit about yourself. Give us an introduction.
Yeah, my name's Lewis. I'm Potatochief on YouTube. I do gaming content and I do wrestling content, mainly wrestling, but I do like my gaming content. I did games design at university, and unfortunately, I'm an Xbox fan. So yeah, I just could be a bit 3-on-1 here, I think.
No one's perfect, mate. That's the thing about it. And so I thought about reaching out to you to get onto this, mainly because whenever I post on Facebook about anything to do with PlayStation, you're always there straight away with something Xbox related.
Yeah.
So I thought it's good to get the other side to this so that we can see and make sure that we're not giving too much of a biased opinion. So at least we can have both sides of an argument, if there even is an argument, which there might not even be.
Lewis has those alerts set on your profile, Davey. Anything you post out, he's straight on it.
I just see the word PlayStation and I'm like, oh, rage type. Like, I gotta reply to this.
He's getting it. He's getting it. So, Lewis, you've got the new Xbox.
I do.
The
The
Xbox Series X.
The X, yeah. I don't have the S, I have the X. You got it. You nailed the name. To be fair,
I'm pretty happy with that.
To be fair, the name is not the strong suit of the Xbox. I'm not going to lie. Yeah,
No.
so I've got the X. I love it. It's a really good system, and I'm really happy that I bought it. To be honest, I know you're not so much, but I am still, I still like PlayStation. I am planning on buying a PS5 at some point, just not straight
When
away.
you can find one.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
ridiculous.
But you've got to say that because you're on the show.
Yeah, I mean, Yes, I do have to say that. Yeah, legally, I'm required to say that.
You are.
So Lewis, like, what have you been doing on the Xbox? What games you been playing? How do you like it? How do you like the UI? Like, what are your overall thoughts?
Well, so I really enjoy it. The UI they haven't really changed it since the Xbox One. So if you why fix something that's not broken? I mean, I have heard the problems with the PS5 UI because they've changed it completely. So I mean, there's that. The problem I have with Xbox is I play too many different things because of Game Pass. I absolutely adore the service. I don't know how much you guys know about Game Pass on here. Do you know much about it or?
I have Game Pass, but I have it on PC.
I have it for PC as well, but I've recently got PS Plus, and I'm in the same situation. Just too many games to play.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, I saw the PS Plus collection. That's on PS5, isn't it? That's the one. That's yeah. And I was like, oh, that was a good counter from PlayStation because that's why I do feel like that was their response to Game Pass.
I think the biggest comparison with Game Pass is PS Now.
Yeah.
And PS Now, in my mind, is a fantastic service in terms of you got a larger selection of games than you do on Xbox Game Pass and probably a higher quality of game because you've got a lot of Sony exclusives in there. But the difference is, and the reason why I think Game Pass is a superior product, is because you can download all the games natively to your system, which is something that you can't do outside of the PS4 generation, which is a real shame with PS Now. Like, the PS3 games that you've got access to are phenomenal, like with the Infamous trilogy, you've got Resistance 3 on there, you've got all these amazing games, yet you've got to play them streamed.
Yeah.
And it's just it's an own goal. I just honestly don't understand that.
Okay, Davey, we know you love PlayStation, but let's give Lewis a chance to sort of sell us Xbox.
No, it's fine.
Okay,
it's totally fine. Like, yeah, because PlayStation Now, I was going to bring up PlayStation Now at some point. The main issue, the main difference between PlayStation Now and Game Pass is the Game Pass, they bring everything first party, day one, to the system. How long is the gap between an exclusive going to PS Now? Because I remember it being a long gap. Yeah, because
it's massive. It's massive. There's a lot of games that haven't even come to PS Now that are exclusive. So it is totally random. There's no kind of set time or anything. So you're totally right. In that department, Game Pass is much better in terms of if you're in that ecosystem for Xbox, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Why wouldn't you have Game Pass, you know? Whereas PS Now is a bit more of a additive feature rather than an essential for PS Now.
Okay, Lewis, I walk into Game or Electronics Boutique or, Tesco's. Sell me it. What am I buying with an Xbox? What is the game to buy on Xbox at the moment for a PlayStation audience that maybe wouldn't have the opportunity to play those games?
To me, it's not necessarily the one game. It's the system itself and the features. Me personally, I weighed up the pros and cons of both systems, and I felt Xbox has better specs and will run most things third party at a better quality. And you had Game Pass, which had everything coming day one. And the prices of games on PS5 have increased and gone up this generation. And so when I looked at the both side by side, it's like, I could get Spider-Man, I could get Demon's Souls, but then I'd be paying 70 quid for each game. And it's going to be a massive expense. And every time I buy a new game, it'd be at the full price, whereas I could just pay for Game Pass, have lots of games to play, 4K, 120 frames per second, and I can save my money and get a PS5 when the price goes down, and when these games go to second hand or to lower the price. That was reason why I picked Xbox over PlayStation, at least at this time, because I will be buying a PS5, but that is my reasoning.
Just because you're on the show, you don't have to keep apologising. But what I'm asking you is, what is the one game that I'm buying Xbox for? What's the game that attracted you? What are you playing at the moment? What's in the disc tray at the moment?
Assassin's Creed Valhalla is what I've been playing at the moment. I know it's not an exclusive, but that's the one I've been playing the most of at the moment. I've just downloaded Wolfenstein because I've been wanting to play Wolfenstein 2, but I just got around to play Wolfenstein. All the Doom games are on there now. So I mean, that was big news from the roundtable, is that they dropped 20 Bethesda games on Game Pass. So I've gone back and downloaded a lot of Bethesda games. I mean, I have a problem. I think I've got like a bit of ADD or something, because my My main issue is I'll play a game for like 10 minutes and then I'll play something else, but that works perfectly with this kind of secret system. I've Wolfenstein 1 minute, and then I've been playing New Super Lucky's Tale, which is like a platformer, and I've also been playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Yakuza Like a Dragon and Forza Horizon 4 and Dirt 5. I keep switching between games. Because the quick resume, I literally is seamless, just going from game to game to game, and I think it's almost a bad thing to me because now I just literally can't stick to one game for more than 10 minutes. I'll just get bored and change to another game constantly. I mean, it's not one game; it's the whole ecosystem as a thing. The reason why I bought an Xbox.
Makes a lot of sense. So one of the things you sort of pulled up there was the deal with Bethesda, and I know you are sort of struggling for exclusives to talk about with Xbox, and that brings us on to the reason we brought you onto the podcast.
So the news itself, as we all knew, that the deal was going through with Bethesda and Microsoft, and it was a crazy and eye-watering amount of $7.5 billion that Bethesda was bought for. Now, Phil and Spence, I mean, you guys, I asked you the price of Insomniac a couple of episodes ago, and you were guessing at like 80 million, around about there, and it was 229 million that they were bought for. And when you compare that to this price, 7.5 billion, that's more than Star Wars was bought for. It's eye-wateringly large, crazy amount.
Unfortunately, I don't have much experience in buying video games companies, so I didn't really know where to place that one. And of course, you did ask us after, a copious amount of alcohol as well, so that goes in my defense slightly there.
For the last couple of months, since that deal was first announced, we've all kind of speculated as to what the future would look like in terms of Bethesda games and if they'd remain in the PlayStation ecosystem or if they wouldn't. Now, Phil Spencer says he made a statement that was fairly clear. I have issues with this statement, but I'll read it out in full. So this is what Phil Spencer said during the Xbox and Bethesda Roundtable live stream, which happened on March 11th. So yesterday from the date of recording. So obviously I can't sit here and say every Bethesda game is exclusive, because we know that's not true. There's contractual obligations that we're going to see through, as we always do in every one of these instances. We have games that exist on other platforms, and we're going to support these games on the platforms they're on. There's communities of players, and we love those communities, and we'll continue to invest in them. And even in the future, there might be things that have contractual things or legacy on different platforms that we'll go do. But if you're an Xbox customer, the thing I want you to know is that this is about delivering great exclusive games for you that ship on platforms where Game Pass exists. That's our goal. That's why we're doing this. That's the root of this partnership that we're building. So, what I want to know from all of you, and I especially want Lewis's take on this and what this means, is what does this mean for PlayStation? What does legacy titles mean? And what will happen to Doom? That's really all I care about out of this deal is Doom and Wolfenstein. That's all I don't give a shit about Elder Scrolls. They can stay in the bin. So, first off, before we hand it over to Lewis, what would you say, guys?
I mean, I'll keep it short and simple. I have never really been a fan of Bethesda games anyway. I've played Skyrim, I've played Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, I've played Oblivion. The only game out of those I've actually finished is Fallout 3. But I could leave it. I'd be quite happy not playing Bethesda games for the rest of my life. And even if I do want to, I have a gaming PC and they'll be on Games Pass. So it's not like I need to go buy an Xbox. It's fine for me, really.
I find the statement really strange, seeing as, Bethesda have only just announced Deathloop for PlayStation, and that's kind of a new title that they're going to be pushing. To now say that they're going to be, pushing more titles towards Xbox and towards the people with Game Pass, to now have released Deathloop at sort of the same time is slightly a confused message, in my opinion.
So Deathloop is a contracted thing. PlayStation paid for timed exclusivity on Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, I believe. Those are the two games. So those two games are contracted by PlayStation to be timed exclusives, and they're going to honour those because legally they have to. I mean, they haven't really got much of a choice. That's what they mean by the contracted things. What I'm interested about is if Starfield or Indiana Jones are going to be contracted as well. We don't know what those contracts are. We know those games are coming, but there's no... Contracts are usually signed years in advance. This is not something that's done like a week or two before.
That's my point, isn't it? That sort of Deathloop is timed at exactly the same time this has been brought to the forefront of everyone's kind of, view on what's happening with Bethesda. So, as you said, contracts are sort of written and agreed months, years, possibly longer, that they know these things are going to be happening. So why are these two things happening at the same time? It just seems a bit confused in my opinion.
The Xbox deal has been going for 5 months. Unfortunately for Xbox, they couldn't do anything until the money has gone through. They literally couldn't nail anything down until literally yesterday. And that's why they had the round table thing. So all these contracts they were done previously are all set in stone. But as you said, we don't know what the contracts are for these other games coming up. So that is going to be interesting to see how these all shake out. But I do think in a year's time, 2 years' time, all these games will be 100% exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem, aka Game Pass, PC, and Xbox.
Weird Phil Spencer mentions about legacy titles. He says, so his statement said, and even in the future, there might be things that have contractual things or legacy on different platforms that will go do. With that, that's the thing that I'm kind of hung up on a little bit, is that legacy.
Yeah.
Do you think he's just referencing the live service games like with Fallout 76 and Elder Scrolls Online? Or do you think he's more talking about games which were previously multi-platform?
I mean, it could be either. As you said, the wording could be a bit misconstrued. I personally think it is on about online services games, but it could quite as easily be like, we could release Skyrim again on PS5, like, as, how many times they released Skyrim? I mean, it is on
true.
previous systems, so releasing it on a PS5, possibly that might be what they mean by legacy, but I do think what's happened in the past with Mojang and with Double Fine, they've had their games developed and they said they would be coming to multiple platforms, and they've honoured those. So Minecraft is still on PlayStation, still on Nintendo, and Psychonauts 2 will be on PlayStation as well. So those type of things are still they're still going through, but everything that's new is just Xbox exclusive. So I think it is just titles, again, it's like the contracted thing previously with Deathloop. I think it's more along that line when they say legacy titles, and obviously online service games, which are multi-platform and cross-play.
Do you feel with Bethesda, though, like any sort of new titles or new IPs that they bring out, obviously they would go straight to Xbox. Maybe that's what he's saying. Maybe he's saying, the back catalogue, obviously a lot of that is multi-platform, and that's where they've got their popularity from, is having their games on everything, basically, isn't it? As you said, Skyrim is available on literally every platform going. I can put it on my toaster,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Or the fridge, that's the other one. I mean, what Xbox is now is that they're no longer really a console manufacturer. They're more like they are Netflix, or that's what they're trying to be. They're trying to they're focusing more on Game Pass than they are about selling consoles or anything like that. So what they want to do is have a consistent level of good content coming out every couple of months to keep people in the subscription model. It's like the Netflix model. You'll get Stranger Things or The Crown or something like that every couple of months, and then you'll have all these little things just to keep you going. And the analogy I heard earlier was just like streaming services are like sushi. It's like you have a lot of rice, which are like the stuff that's just there in the background, like the back catalogue. But then you need to have like a bit of fish every couple of months. You need something substantial, and that's what Bethesda brings to Game Pass. So it's like you'll have Halo in November, and then you'll have Starfield in spring, and then the new Wolfenstein in summer, and then so they have like these big tentpoles to keep people subscribed to Game Pass. I mean, that is the goal, is to keep stringing people along, essentially.
Do you think then, with the existing IP, like Phil was saying, and you've touched on as well, Lewis, with new IP, you'd expect those immediately to be Xbox exclusive. I don't think anyone would even bat an eyelid at that. Like, that should happen. In terms of the existing IP that are there, in terms of like your Elder Scrolls, your Doom, your Wolfenstein, your Dishonored, those kind of things, do you think new titles in those existing IP would be platform exclusive to Xbox and its Game Pass ecosystem?
Yeah, that is the reason why they've bought Bethesda, is to make Game Pass a more enticing product. They want everyone to sign up to Game Pass. I mean, they've said previously that if they could get Game Pass on PlayStation, they would do that, but obviously PlayStation would want that on their system.
Yeah, no chance. They wouldn't take that. No way.
Well, like we were saying about Skyrim being on toasters and stuff, that's literally what Xbox want to do with Game Pass. I mean, they got the S, the X, PC, and now they stream on Android phones. They want to get it on iPhone, but there's legal requirements. But they're gonna have browser-based services, not Bowser. It's a different podcast.
That'd be different, wouldn't it? That would be a different crossover. Just get Bowser himself, or Doug Bowser from Nintendo. Just get him involved in it.
I think I'd be annoyed if Wayne Gretzky's hockey doesn't come out on PlayStation in the future.
What is
You've
that?
done some research there. You've done some research.
That's Bethesda's 1988 title, Wayne Gretzky's hockey. I was a big fan of that.
Of course you were.
Slightly before your time, Spence.
Well, yeah. Well, Phil, you know, as we said in the podcast a couple of times, you were 42 by the time that came out. So, you know, you've got some good memories of that. They're probably fading now at this age, Phil, but
to be fair,
I'm surprised you still remember it.
To be fair, ice hockey games were always epic as a kid.
Yeah,
They were.
Do you remember what icing is? What's icing? I never understood what icing was, but I caused that issue all the time.
This is probably going to be a bit controversial to the PlayStation audience, but I've been saying this for months. I've been saying this for a number of episodes, actually, in the past, whenever this kind of topic has come up. If it was PlayStation that were doing this deal, you know damn straight there wouldn't be a goddamn thing going anywhere else outside of our ecosystem. There definitely wouldn't. And I remember saying when we talked about the potential success of Xbox in the future, this was about the same time that just before PlayStation 5 came out and Xbox, and we weren't sure if Xbox was going to clean house, that now they got that really cheap SKU in the S. And I think we were saying at the time, basically saying about like how the fact they need to get more exclusives. They just need to, because at the moment they're just getting trashed. Like there's, out of the two consoles, there really isn't much need to own an Xbox at the moment, because with Halo being delayed, there's nothing there. There just isn't, or nothing of any worth. I mean, you got the medium, but you know, Christ Jesus, like that's nothing. So you need to have something there that's got a real bit of meat on the bones. And as much as it pains me, because I love Doom, I love Wolfenstein, I love all these things, that will be the thing that makes me buy an Xbox for those IP. So if they can keep that within the ecosystem, they don't bend, they don't break on it. Like at the moment, the Xbox being outsold, I think it's like 4-1. It's getting trashed. But if they stick to their guns and they do not release this anywhere else apart from Game Pass and things like that, I know I'll be buying an Xbox.
Personally, I think it's quite a shrewd business move for them to buy Bethesda and release games that are available on PlayStation. Because if they're about making money from selling the games, to have it available on all the platforms, they're going to make more money from Bethesda. They don't necessarily need Bethesda to be 100% exclusive to Xbox. Fair enough. You scrape off the cream, right? And that's your big games. That's your Dooms. That's your Elder Scrolls. That's your Skyrims. That's the big games everybody knows Bethesda for. Put those to Xbox. But all the other ones, sell them on PlayStation. Make your money. Make your coin.
As much as like I do agree they probably would make a bit more money if the games were on PlayStation, them acquiring Bethesda now ensures that every Bethesda release can be day and day on Game Pass. And I think that's what they want.
And honestly, Microsoft is a multi-trillion-dollar company. They don't care about making slight bit of money from PlayStation. They can make their money back from selling Game Pass subscriptions to people. I mean, that's how they're going to make their money. They don't want to sell it on PlayStation, and they want to establish Xbox as a bigger brand than what it is. Because, as you said, they are clearly in third place at the moment.
And you don't feel like... I'm maybe not talking about the game sales here, right? So if they sell another Wayne Gretzky's hockey on PlayStation, right? And they make a couple more bucks on that, that doesn't matter. But having an Xbox game on PlayStation, that's huge, right? That's a marketing, dream, isn't it? To have your name on a competitor's console.
But then it takes the need away from having to buy an Xbox.
It doesn't if you hold back exclusives. The ones people want, you put on Xbox.
But if you wanted Wayne Gretzky's hockey so badly, you would buy an Xbox to play it. So, like, if it was on PlayStation, then why would you buy an Xbox?
There's a kind of middle ground here, which I think we could potentially explore. So the middle ground would be that you have everything go day and date on Xbox, right? on Game Pass. Everything. But you also release on PlayStation. But they have to pay 70 quid. So then you got that choice then of, I could just buy this console for £400 or whatever it is, but then I've got all these games for free that I'm paying 70 quid for. And there is that too. Now, personally, I think the smartest decision is locking it away. Locking it away and saying it's only here. This is the only place you can get it. Screw everyone else. That will force people to buy an Xbox, even if it is just a secondary console.
But you're only saying that because that's what PlayStation do.
But it works.
It does work, but you don't see this idea yet because it hasn't happened, right? You've got to try these things. So why not have a developer that you can put out games on both consoles? And as I said, keep the cream of the crop for your exclusives, but sell across the board, maybe at a later date, as you've mentioned, and at the higher price that Sony sort of demands. And then you do attract people naturally to the preferred console.
But then Xbox didn't have exclusives all the way back from 2017 onwards, and that's completely screwed them. This entire generation has been a problem for the Xbox One because it has no exclusives. And that is the problem. And that's why Xbox has invested so much money in buying new studios. They've gone from free studios in 2016 to 20 free studios. They've bloated ridiculously. And honestly, I think they're fed up of being third place. They know they've got the money to do it. They want to compete. They want to be the big dog. They want to be the top console. They want to sell everything on their console. They want 100% of the money, not 50% because 50% go in PlayStation. They want all the money to themselves. They want to take over. This is a long-term investment. This is not a quick way of making money. This is them investing in building a bigger brand and taking over, essentially, which is kind of scary, but it's what I feel like it is.
Okay, for me, so this omni-channel approach, which I'm talking about, exists now. It exists with The Walking Dead, right? So when The Walking Dead comes out, it comes out on their preferred service. Later, and it comes to Amazon. It comes to Netflix, or maybe not Netflix, but it comes to other services later on. So that's what I'm talking about, is an option for Bethesda to be able to now release their games on PlayStation at a later date.
I get it. I just don't think that's what they want to do, personally.
It's just a thought. I'm only going off what's popular at the moment and what's generating, a lot of traffic on these platforms.
It makes a lot of sense, but I think that they're in the mindset of the traditional mindset of, as you said, exclusive sell consoles. That's what their mindset is at the moment. I see your logic, but I think Phil's pretty much made his point that he's going to try and keep everything exclusive to console, to the Xbox ecosystem.
I actually kind of agree in that obviously games should come to us at a later date. It's a smart way of making money. And that's kind of how I feel Phil Spencer meant. Terrible name, by the way, seeing as we have Phil and Spencer.
Yeah, sorry.
There it is.
I didn't even clock that. I didn't even clock it.
Every single time you said the name, I thought, this is horrible.
Every time you say Phil, I'm like, did I say that? Fuck me.
What were you doing on the Bethesda roundtable, Phil? Will I do it? Will I won't do it? I don't know. Nobody knows from my statements because they're vague as fuck.
Mate, crack is a hell of a drug. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, but Phil, like you said about obviously making more money by bringing the games to a different service later on, I kind of feel that's what he meant by the legacy games. Whereas, so obviously future games in that IP would come to Games Pass and Xbox on day, and then timed exclusivity, and then eventually come to PlayStation. That's what I thought from legacy.
You guys are talking the same way that PlayStation doing with their PC releases. Like in terms of just dropping it way down the line, that they then get access to Days Gone and Death Stranding and stuff like that. That kind of thing, right?
Yeah, very similar to that, yeah.
Well, my example, you go to Amazon now, what season of The Walking Dead can you watch on Amazon?
God knows. They didn't even actually watch The Walking Dead past season 3.
I'm currently watching The Walking Dead, hence why I'm talking about it. But,
poor bastard.
But what I'm saying is, it's not the newest season, and it's not the season before the newest season, it's not the season before that. But the back catalogue you can watch on Amazon, but it's not an Amazon product. They're just making that extra coin and promoting The Walking Dead as a series to get people to subscribe to the preferred platform.
I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, this is the interesting thing about it now, is that we've got, as you guys have already said, we got Deathloop and we got the kind of contractual games to get through. But then when it comes to Starfield and it comes to the new Elder Scrolls and the new Doom and everything else, that's when we'll know what it's going to mean going forward. But I will be really interested to see that. Lewis, have you got any kind of final thoughts or anything you want to add in?
I mean, I actually had a PlayStation-related question to do with this subject. We've been arguing if it's going to be full exclusive or not. Let's just say it is full exclusive for the purpose of this question. So there's no Wolfenstein and there's no Doom. Do you think it's time for PlayStation to bring back Killzone and Resistance to try and fill some kind of void from those games being gone?
You are literally preaching to the choir. We are desperate for them to come back. And I gotta say, I'm really happy for Xbox that this whole deal's gone through, because you need healthy competition in the gaming ecosystem for everyone to improve. If we didn't have Xbox coming out with achievements, we wouldn't have trophies, which are obviously the better system. You wouldn't have all these different things that they learn from each other without that healthy level of competition. So we need that here, and it does make a healthy Xbox going to make a better PlayStation. And it would mean a PlayStation that can't demand a load of shit or instigate rules that everyone disagrees with, but they got no one else to go to. I mean, no one's going to go to Nintendo. Are you fucking 10?
It's like a podcast without me, Davey. I'm here just to spur you on, to kick you when you're down, to slap you across the face, to ask you to pronounce your lager in the certain accents that you do quite eloquently each episode.
It's getting better. It is getting better. I mean, the one I did today slayed it.
Hey, you practiced.
I was going to say that earlier, is that without Xbox, would we still be in the Ridge Racer and $5.99 US? Would we still be at that kind of level? Without PlayStation, would Xbox still be TV, Call of Duty, TV?
If they've still got the Ridge Racer soundtrack, I don't care. I was vibing to that when I was a kid.
You've got to have that healthy level of competition, and so if Xbox can really start killing it this generation and start gaining some ground, then it's only going to mean better things for us as PlayStation fans, because they'll have to raise their game. A high tide raises all ships, as the saying goes. So thank you ever so much to Potatochief for joining us on that discussion. I really felt like he really melded into the podcast there. The good thing is he could take a bit of banter about the fact that Xbox is in the state it's in, which is always quite good to be able to see from such a diehard fan. So thank you ever so much, Lewis, for joining us. If you want to be able to find Lewis on socials, he does have a YouTube channel, as he mentioned. Just go on to YouTube and type in Potatochief, exactly as you'd say it. I'll put a link to it in the description for the podcast as well. So go on there and support him. That would be really nice to be able to show that we appreciate his insight into the Xbox brand, and I'm sure that we'll see him back on the podcast in the future.
One thing sort of to mention when it comes to socials, we've been branching out. We now have our own Reddit page, so you can find In PS We Trust on Reddit, as well as Podchaser. But ultimately, we're searching for your reviews on iTunes. So if you have enjoyed our podcast, or even if you haven't, please leave us a review on iTunes, because that's the most valuable to us.
That means that people will be able to find our show easier and we'll be able to grow quicker. Ultimately, if our show can grow quicker and we can get out to more people, then it just means we just got potential of more people hearing how you don't want to get mugged in the street by a turtle and live to see the next day. Who wouldn't want to hear that?
So for our final topic, boys, we've all been a bit excited about this one. We're going to be having a look back at our top 5 favourite games of the PlayStation 4 generation. And with going through each game, we're going to be giving them a score. So our 5th favourite game will be earning a point of 1, and our top favourite game will be earning a point of 5, and then so on and so forth. And then after we finish going in rotation, we will then have a definitive top 5 games of the podcast. So Phil, what was your 5th favourite game of the PlayStation 4 generation?
Okay, I'm glad you've come to me first, right? Because I think this was the hardest choice on my list. I've tossed and turned because I've got a 6th, a 7th, and an 8th favourite game on PlayStation 4. There's so many, I think, for me, that are fighting for this last spot. I think, for me, the top 4 are really locked in, But when it comes to the 5th spot, there's a lot of competition. And the game I've picked is Guerrilla's Games' Horizon Zero Dawn. That's come in at my number 5.
Being number 5 on a generation like the PlayStation 4 is a phenomenal achievement. That is a massive, massive prop to
It's
that
big.
game. So what was it that you really enjoyed about it?
I think it's funny, right? Because when I initially started up this game, it came out in 2017, 28th of February. I think I bought it around about when it came out. But I didn't love it initially. I think I fell out of love quite quickly with it. And it was you, Davey, that brought me back while we were in the gym after a session to say, go back to that game. Give it some time. Give it some space. And I did. And I loved it. But I think I played it quite differently to the majority of people because I didn't use the override till way late in the game.
Didn't you? You didn't go into the little garages and learn how to take over machines. You didn't do any of that stuff.
No, I didn't.
Oh my god! It's like one of the earliest things.
I think I played that game on extra hard mode. You know me. I'm a traditionalist. I want my games to be super difficult, and I think I just missed out one fundamental factor in that game when I initially started playing it. But when I went back to it, I understood what that meant in the game, and then I fell in love with it. And I truly think it is a really good game, and I would recommend anyone who's got a PlayStation 4 to go through and play that. I did platinum the game. It's one of the rare titles that I have the platinum for.
And that's like a mark of honor for you.
It really is.
Unlike Spence with his trash My Name is Mayo list, your platinums are like a kind of seal of quality in a way, because it's only games that you don't even care about the platinum, but you feel like you're kind of obligated to get it because you enjoy it that much.
They mean something, right? Which, when we get on to my 4th choice, I hate that I haven't got the platinum for it, because I really should, and that might give you a massive hint to what my next choice is.
So my number 5, much like you said, Phil, my number 4 and 5 slot were really difficult. I've got a list here of contenders, which could quite easily on any given day slot into that space. For me, my number 5 is Resident Evil 7. I adored this game. Resident Evil, as you know, is something that I hold very dear to me. I love that series with everything I have. And so when a developer says we're going to take a big risk with it, and we're going to make it first person, let alone you got to think at the time when it came out, the last couple of Resident Evil experiences that I'd experienced, Resident Evil 5 and 6, which were very different. So to see them go back to a more horror-based approach, and for it to have meaningful characters and meaningful enemies is phenomenal. And it kind of felt like returning to what I love about Resident Evil. And it was the first time we kind of take it for granted now with Capcom, because Capcom was such a killing streak. But Capcom were really struggling at the time. They didn't have great games. Resident Evil 6, even though it sold an awful lot, wasn't particularly well regarded, especially in the fan base. And Street Fighter wasn't exactly setting the world on fire with Street Fighter 5. So they weren't doing too well. And Resident Evil 7 was the turning point for Capcom, where you start to see the fruits of everything that they'd learned. And that is my number 5 game.
My number 5, boys, is Persona 5. I bought a PS4 for Persona 5. It's the reason I bought it. And then maybe 6 months after I getting my PS4, I actually played the game. I played it for maybe 40 hours and I loved it. I can't say too much about it because I never finished it, which is a bit peak, but I love the time I had with it. I do need to finish it. The reason, I know what you're thinking. How dare this be your number 5 if you've not finished it?
You said you put 40 hours in. That is a long commitment. That's a longer time than Phil would have put into, or I would have put into, Horizon Zero Dawn. 40 hours is a long old time. That's long enough for you to know what the game is. And Persona's a long-ass game. That's like 120-hour completion time, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be. It depends.
Mate, you've got to remember, I did Horizon Zero Dawn without the mind control. I
probably like a 70-hour
I might have taken a long time to complete that game.
Yeah, you might have done. But no, I think even regardless of the fact you haven't finished it, it's like the same for The Witcher with me, The Witcher 3. I love The Witcher 3. I thought it was a great game. I didn't complete it. I didn't even get halfway through that game. But I put 80 odd hours in. You know, It's enough time for you to know how that game works and how it's going to change over the course of the rest of the game. And 40 hours is plenty of time. If you put 2 hours in, I'd have some pushback on you.
Yeah.
40 is plenty.
Yeah. So when I finally got the game, it was because it was on sale. I remember it was on sale on PS on the PlayStation Store, and I bought it 25 quid digital. Phenomenal game. It's just great. I don't have the same hype that a lot of Persona fans have. There are people that are they're not even gamers, they're just Persona fans. And I'm not one of those. I just like games. But Persona has a special place for me because I love Persona 4. I was really excited for Persona 5. I do still need to finish it. But even though I've not finished the game, the experience I had with it was good enough to give it the number 5 spot on my list.
So for my number 4, and to give it its correct title, Resident Evil Biohazard. And as Davey mentioned, Resident Evil 7. That comes in at my number 4. This was released on the 24th of January 2017 by Capcom. It's the 9th in the major installments of the survival horror game Resident Evil. And they switched things up. They went first person. They put you in the driving seat as Ethan Winters. You become the person. It's not Chris. It's not Jill. It's you. And my God, I love that game. Unfortunately, I didn't get the platinum. I know you're going to be asking about this, but I love Resident Evil 7.
Well, now you've got the opportunity to go back to it on the PlayStation Plus collection. It's actually there for you just to download digitally, so you can just play it when you're up in your office on your PS4 and just carry the save over and play it on PS5. Do you think you'd actually do it? I do have the platinum on that game. If I remember rightly, most Resident Evil games net around about 3-4% platinum because it's quite a high margin of the community will actually do it. Resident Evil 7, for some reason, is sitting about 1.2. Quite low.
It's a scary game,
quite
mate.
A hard platinum.
It might have scared.
It
It really is. Personally, I would love to go back to it. And it's the same with all the Resident Evil titles. I would love to play them over and over again. And that's why I'm so passionate about the franchise. I could just play them forever. But I'm looking at my back catalogue, and ultimately, I need to keep this content fresh. I can't keep talking about Resident Evil on this podcast.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I feel really bad for our listeners because that's all my YouTube channel's covering, so that's a lot of my time taken up. So I do really apologise for that, but it is what it is. My number 4 is Spider-Man, developed by Insomniac Games. This game is everything I could ever ask for a Spider-Man game.
Yeah.
An absolutely sensational game from the very beginning all the way to the end. To use some more Spider-Man quotes in there, it's amazing. I've already used sensational. It's superior.
Unlimited?
It's fantastic. It is not $20.99. It is brilliant in every single way possible. I love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, for me, Spider-Man on PS2, delivering pizzas and everything that game was a real step up from what we were used to. And especially when it comes to superhero games. And to see Insomniac just take what worked from the PS2 and GameCube original and just make it into one of, if not the best superhero stories I've ever experienced, is a dream come true. And especially for my favourite superhero. Absolutely phenomenal game. And better, in my opinion, than Miles Morales, which we discussed on our spoiler cast.
It's a bit hard to follow up because my number 4 game of the PS4 generation is also Spider-Man.
Oh my God, great minds think alike.
But yeah, the time I spent with that game, I don't even own the game. I borrowed it from you, Davey, if you recall. But the time I did spend with it, I loved it. He's my favorite superhero too. I have a tattoo of him on my left arm. I have a Spider-Man onesie behind me that I'll be getting into later on when I go to bed. I love Spider-Man. He's always been my favorite superhero. So for them to make a game that does that hero justice is just phenomenal. The story is breathtaking. It actually proper rips your heart out towards the end. It's just phenomenal. I'm not sure how to place it with Miles Morales because they are different experiences, I find. They're very similar in how they play, but Miles Morales didn't have the time to tell the same story. It just had so much more restraints to it. But the original Spider-Man is the superior of the two, I think. Maybe. I could argue with myself about that for a long time, I think. But it's earned the number 4 place on my team.
So you're saying it's the superior Spider-Man?
I hate that. The little smirk you gave as well. I hate that.
So my number 3, lads. and I'm sure this game will feature higher up your lists than it does mine. I'm talking about The Last of Us Part 2. That has come in at my number 3.
Oh my gosh, number 3. Okay.
So as everyone knows, it's a Naughty Dog title. Came out the 19th of June, 2020. And I slept on the original. And Davey, again, I probably should listen to you more when it comes to video games.
Not in general, though. Just video games.
Yeah, just in video. I wouldn't listen to you in anything else, but...
Good. I'm glad that we haven't turned a corner in our friendship here. I'm glad that we still have that level of untrust that solidifies our friendship.
That's what it's built on. But when it comes to video games, you get a lot of things right. And you were right about Horizon. God of War, I'm not 100% turned around on because I don't love it. But The Last of Us, I do love. And The Last of Us Part 2 is an epic game. You bought me the remaster on PS4 of the original. And I think that was a Christmas present from yourself. And that brought me on to buy The Last of Us Part 2, day one. Epic game. Goes in at my number 3.
My number 3 is developed by From Software, and it's Bloodborne. Bloodborne, to me, is the first Souls game I ever played. And so that always has a special place in your heart. Whichever first Souls game you play, you have the most difficulty with, because you don't understand how that game works. So it kicks you down and beats the living shit out of you until, as Spencer says, you get good. And it did that. I was stuck in the original area of Bloodborne for about 15 hours. Literally 15 hours. Until it just clicked. And then as soon as it clicked, I absolutely pancaked that entire game. And it's the most satisfying game I've ever played. In terms of its difficulty, in terms of its builds that you can do. It's phenomenal. And I've gone back, reinstalled that game on my PlayStation 4 multiple times over the generation. Whenever somebody says, oh, I'm just playing Bloodborne for the first time, I need some help, immediately reinstall it and go into that game. Because it's just too fun to play. All the Souls games, bar 2, could have featured on this list. And I've got Dark Souls 3 in my contenders list. But to me, Bloodborne is just a better version of that game. It's phenomenal.
So for my number 3, boys, I have Uncharted 4, which I reckon neither of you even have on your list.
I certainly don't. Personally, I think it's the weakest one out of the series outside of number 1.
That's correct. That's insane.
I agree with you on that point, Davey. We're both fans of Uncharted 3, I think, as that being our favourite. But it does come in as one of the ones I was tossing and turning over potentially coming in at number 5. But yeah, it's just the repetition of the actions within that game. It was just too much for me.
It does feel like the first one in the series that you can tell what's coming up next. Oh, I got a rope swinging section. Oh, I got a section I do a bit of stealth. Oh, I got a section I do a bit of climbing. It felt like the only one that was a bit too repetitious. And I think some of that could be due to the length of it. It's a very long game, if I remember right.
It's the longest out of the series, yeah.
The set pieces are amazing, but I'll leave you to talk about this because they are definitely a highlight when it comes to the game.
So basically, the reason it's on the list, I don't think it's as good as Uncharted 3. But if Uncharted 3 was a PS4 game, it would be in the spot. So Uncharted 4, it's just, the storytelling's great. They like push you in through, you with your brother, you find out he has a brother, for one, which is great. You learn to be brothers, I suppose. And you build this connection. And then it's a more personal experience, I find, in number 4. It's a lot more personal than any of the other Uncharted games.
I think this was one of the first games that I watched you stream, actually, Spence. Because you streamed a lot of this game, didn't you?
I streamed all of the Uncharteds. I streamed my playthroughs of 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Old school Spencer fan here.
Hey,
thank you.
Appreciate you, Phil.
That's why I've got mod privileges.
Yeah. Still never subscribed, though.
I get booted out even though I'm sub for 4 months in a row. I love that game. That game is fun. It is a great game. It's better than 90% of the games on the PlayStation 4.
It is, yeah.
There's moments in that game that will stick with me for the rest of my life. When it loads up and you're underwater and you're in a scuba tank and it looks like a tropical kind of paradise, right? You're under the water, there's sea kelp there. And you rise to the top and it just turns out you're in like a harbour in like a city. That will always
exactly,
stick with me. It really will. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. When they sit down to play Crash Bandicoot, I had the biggest smile on my face. Going up into the attic and seeing all the relics and all the different things from all over his adventures where he's playing around with the gun. Loved all that. There's some sensational moments in Uncharted 4, but it just didn't live up to what I wanted it to be.
You just played Uncharted 3, mate. You'd played Uncharted 3,
I played
that's why.
Uncharted 2 and 3, and both of those games are just a level above Uncharted 4 in my opinion, and I loved it at the time, I really did. The more time that's gone on, the more I've soured on it. And I remember immediately when I finished it, and I'm often overhyped for games when I first play them and I sour on them over time. And when I finished Uncharted 4 and I spoke to Phil, and we were both similar on it, saying it's too long, it's too repetitive, and it's no way near as good as Uncharted 3.
So just to jump in, guys, recently my girlfriend bought me the official PlayStation magazine.
Sure,
Which,
mate.
to be honest, I haven't read a magazine in beer time. I can't remember the last time I bought a magazine. But towards the back, they have a PS4 Hall of Fame, which they actually do a top, let me look at it, 25 of PS4 games. And Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, features as their number one. That's their number one game.
That's fucking insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Like,
right?
I'm not going to say the biggest gap in my list is between 3 and 2. The difference between my number 3 and my number 2 is huge. So that is mental.
So what I'm going to do is wait to the end where we've all picked our top fives, and I'm going to include the PlayStation official top 5 and see if it links in, because it doesn't with me. None of their top
fair.
5 links with my top 5.
Okay.
That's
actually sick.
But it'd be interesting to see, wouldn't it?
Yeah, see
that'd be
what
great.
A proper publication thinks compared to a ragtag group of PlayStation aficionados drinking copious amounts of beer on a podcast on the internet, I think.
Did you say a proper publication?
Yeah, it is a proper publication.
A proper publication. I like the alliteration.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to say, isn't it? Phil, could you tell me what's on the front cover of that PlayStation magazine?
Boobs, mate.
It's Lady Dimitrescu, a.k.a.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see because Phil's hand was stuck to the front cover.
Oh,
So I've only just got this magazine back from Davey, and it is. Let's avoid all those crude jokes.
we're better than that.
We are much better than that. Come on. So, boys, my number 2 is Insomniac's Games Spider-Man. That's come in at my number 2 because it's so close to perfection when I'm thinking of a representation of a video game that what I know as Spider-Man as a game. Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense.
The amount of time I've loaded in to a Spider-Man game and expected to play this, it's unbelievable. This has been the only game that's got close to what I've always wanted when it comes to Spider-Man. And again, a sign of quality, I've platinumed this game.
I'll tell you what. You mentioned on number 4 how much you hate that you haven't platinumed your number 4. There's not a single game on my top 5 that I've platinumed. And I hope to amend that in the future. Granted, I'm never going to platinum Persona 5. But I do intend to platinum my top 4.
I would love to go back and have the time to platinum 4 and 3, but I have platinumed 5, 2, and let's not talk about 1 just yet.
I've platinumed my entire list. Every single one.
I could see you waiting to say that with the biggest chest I've seen in my life.
I know, yeah.
So, Davey, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is Sony Santa Monica's God of War. God of War, to me, is everything and more I could ever want from Kratos' story. It takes Kratos out of Greek mythology and brings him into Norse mythology. And doesn't do the things that I anticipated they'd do with Norse mythology, and that is shit in Thor. They don't do any of that. Instead, they just leave you to experience a story of a father and son and their growing relationship across an entire game. It works on every single level. The gameplay is phenomenal. It's so deep that I can barely even scratch the surface on it. Looking at what people can do on that game compared to what I did is sensational. It's got some of the best bosses that I've played in recent memory, with the Valkyries, and yet alone with some of the main bosses in the main campaign, and a heartfelt story that really got me at the end. Everything is just so methodically planned. From just the fact that when you're going off and you're going off the beaten path and you're getting into your ship, you've got a story being told to you by a head on your belt. So it's not boring. So you're not just literally just doing something just to get from A to B. You then get from A to B, but then wait at B to listen to the end of a story so you can get off your boat. It's so sensational in the way it's designed, the way it looks, holds up today, 3 years later. It looks better than most games that are released today. It looks absolutely phenomenal. I love it. It just literally takes everything I love about God of War and puts character onto somebody that I didn't even know had any other emotion other than pure rage. It's a landmark for gaming, and to me, after I completed it, it went to my number 1 in the list, and it took a lot of beating to get it off my number 1.
I'm just going to say it does feature in the Sony official PlayStation Magazine's top 5, but I'm not going to tell you which place it features in just yet.
So Spencer, what is your number 2?
My number 2, and you boys might be surprised by this. Maybe not. I'm not sure. But as you boys all know, I've recently just finished Resident Evil 2.
No way!
That game is my number 2.
No way!
Wow, that high, going in at number 2. Wow.
I'm not going to lie to you. During your speech of God of War, I debated whether or not I should change it to my number 1.
Wow.
I've not had a game make me feel the way Resident Evil 2 did. I'm trying to think of when. I don't think ever. I've never been so truly terrified of a game until it forces you to learn how the game works, and then you get less scared because you're like, I understand now. It scares you until you learn just how to survive the situations, and that's when it becomes phenomenal.
I'm gobsmacked, but super happy with you picking that as number 2.
It was easily my number 2. Easily. Almost my number 1.
Okay, so for my number 1, Davey, I want you to put a little bit of background music on, right? I want you to go on Spotify, and I want you to find a band called Churches, and the song Death Stranding. That has come in at my number 1.
Why didn't I see this coming? This is the crazy thing. I honestly didn't twig. Of course it was going to be Death Stranding. I didn't even think about it. This is the crazy thing.
He talks about 2 games.
I know. I didn't even think.
I come on this PlayStation podcast, and the 2 games I talk about is Death Stranding and Resident Evil. But for me, on PlayStation 4, Death Stranding has been my favourite game. Of course, Death Stranding, Kojima's first game on Kojima Productions, in partnership with Sony. It was published to be an exclusive for PlayStation 4 when it first released. First announced in E3 2016. And when I saw those first kind of screenshots, sort of teasers to the game, I didn't know what to think about it, like a lot of people out there. And ultimately, I really regret not buying the collector's edition to this game because I absolutely love it. It released in the 8th of November 2019. And for people who don't know what Death Stranding is, the goal of the player is to reconnect isolated cities around a fragmented world. You take control of Sam Porter-Bridges, who's played by Norman Reedus, as you attempt to bridge the divide in society. And doing so creates strands. But what this means in the real world is you make deliveries from point to point to build up reputation. And once you build up enough reputation, you move on. very simplistic. But the game is so much more than taking parcel A to point B. Oh my god. I fell in love with everything about the game. The story is intriguing. The gameplay varies between relaxed and full-on action. And the music is my favourite of any game.
So it beats Ridge Racer.
It does beat Ridge Racer. And my sign-off is that I platinum this game.
Death Stranding was so close into my top 5. So close. And I think on any given day, it could quite easily fit in there somewhere. Out of all the games on PlayStation 4, it's the one I think about probably the most. I lament the fact that I haven't gone back and platinum that game. And like you said, your explanation of the game gives nothing away from what that game is. That game is an absolute masterpiece of storytelling, of design, of everything. There's not a feeling like coming over a mountain that you've laid out a path to, and then a soundtrack just kicks in out of nowhere, and you see your destination. It is so superb. And especially when you get to the point where you build entire kind of transit systems across an entire mountain range. You spend an entire night to build a zipline system across an entire mountain to make your return trip so much easier, that it all just comes into path. The fact that I built roads through that entire world just to make it easier for me to make these deliveries is superb.
I think a lot of people just get put off, right? Because how do you explain Death Stranding? Because the story is so complex. You're like, I'm Norman Regis, I've got a baby on my chest, and I've got to make deliveries from A to B. Right? That's the total simplistic explanation of what Death Stranding is.
A lot of these people that you deliver to are celebrities, and they're often wearing random outfits. Like you meet Conan O'Brien, he's wearing like an otter hat. And, you know, like there's celebrities all over the place in that game. They're just featured in there. And the fact that your guy doesn't live on water, he lives on Monster Energy. It's just all a bit random, but it just works. So
one of the things Kojima's really passionate about is fashion. And all the fashion that you see in Death Stranding is actually from a designer called Acronym. And all the jackets that you see, all the kind of like outfits that you see throughout the game have been influenced by the designer Acronym, a German designer, which I find the next level. Kojima's gone a step further. He's got a real life designer. You can actually buy the Death Stranding jacket. Well, you can't anymore because it's proper limited edition. And believe me, I've tried to buy that jacket. It retailed at $1,500 to buy that jacket.
It was nice though.
And you tried to buy it?
Yeah, we both looked at it. Phil shared it to me at the time.
You cannot buy it anymore.
Just like you said with the collector's edition, that is a collector's edition I really regret not buying, because it would sit proudly in my display cabinet, because that game is something special. And it certainly is one of the best games of the generation, without a doubt. If I had a top 10, it would feature in there, no doubt.
But as I said, even like the fashion, the music, Kojima has had his hands on everything to do with that game. It speaks to me on so many levels. It's hard to say my favourite game, but definitely my favourite game of PS4.
Well, my number one will come as no shock to anyone. It's The Last of Us 2. Last of Us 2 was released last year in 2020 by Naughty Dog, and it's the only game that has made me burst out crying multiple times throughout this game. It's the only game that I've had to pause and think about what I've just done. I've never had that kind of emotional connection to a game before in my life, and I don't think I probably will ever again. It was a game that to me is just perfect. Perfect in the truest sense of it. It does outstay its welcome, and it does go on a little bit too long. But in terms of the actions that you do as Ellie and as Abby, that you play as, it's phenomenal. You experience every single part that you need to in terms of that story, in terms of the emotional connections that you make and the actions that you do, and all of them holding weight and holding consequence. And I adore it. I think it's one of those games that you can't replay too much. I played it through for the second time straight after for the platinum, and it was still great, and I had a lot of fun kind of dicking around with the gameplay systems and how much combat's kind of evolved from the original in terms of being able to squeeze through little bookcases and and different things like that, and hearing people cry out for the fact that you've just killed Karen or whatever it is, screaming out for their fellow NPCs. All these different little additions I've really picked up on my second playthrough, but I think it needs time, like any good movie that you go back to years later and you really appreciate it again, and I think it's just got that level for me. I'll never forget the first time I saw Last of Us 2 at E3, and they showed a little combat sequence, and it's kind of at the quarterway mark in the game, I think day 2 of Ellie's campaign. You're in a bookshop, and she's got like a big brute enemy and a couple of little enemies around her, and she is going through the environment, and you see her squeezing through the scenery. And it blew my mind at the time, because you've just never seen that level of context-sensitive animation in a video game before. And for that to be scattered across the entire game, and to have something as simple as when you go to a crafting table, and you can get pulled off that crafting table and assaulted, it's just game-breaking. It's just revolutionary in the most simple sense.
There's so many things in that game, I do agree with you, which are new. It reminds me of a lot of the first time I played Half-Life, where I was experiencing new experiences. And The Last of Us 2 has a lot of those new things in-game.
At the time, people were saying, oh, well, it does nothing different. It's just a third-person shooter. But that's just ridiculous. That is so ridiculous. The amount of attention to detail that went into every single facet of that game just shows in every single animation, every single cutscene, in every single piece of dialogue that's delivered from the key characters. It's superb. And to me, it was my easy choice. Number 1 without a question.
I'm the final one to go. My number 1, boys, might come as a surprise to you. It's Knack.
Jesus
What a game.
Christ.
Yeah,
Get him off the podcast. Get him off!
Can we get Potatochief?
It's definitely not
back.
Knack, boys. It's definitely not fucking Knack. It's definitely not Knack. As I said earlier on, Resident Evil 2 almost took this spot. But the reason that it didn't is because, granted, Resident Evil 2 made me feel horrified. It didn't make me feel as emotional as the game on my number 1 spot. And it's the same as Davey. It's The Last of Us 2. It's the only game since maybe Final Fantasy Crisis Core that I've cried at, which was on the PSP. But this game, The Last of Us 2, the storytelling's phenomenal. I completely agree with Davey. It does outstay its welcome. It is way too long. But the way they go through Abby and Ellie's story and make you actually think about both characters even whilst they're each other's enemies, is so phenomenal. The combat's way better. Granted, I had a few glitches, but I seem to have that with every game I play. But it's just amazing. And the way they handle the story, it's just brilliant. I haven't felt that way about a game in a long time. And granted, I think The Last of Us 1 being my favourite game of all time does probably bump it up a bit higher than it should. The Last of Us 2 was still one of the greatest games I've ever played. And I don't think anything could ever change that.
So, Phil, you've been keeping track of our scores. But before we go into our scores, do you want to go through the top 5 on the official PlayStation Magazine chart? And we'll see how some of ours stacked up before you unveil our collated scores and see which games are the best.
Yeah, of course. I've just scrolled to the page, right? Number 1, as I said, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End.
Ludicrous.
Yeah, it's insane, not gonna lie.
That's their number 1. Number 2, Red Dead Redemption 2.
Okay, I haven't played it, so... But, okay.
Number 3, Grand Theft Auto 5.
That's
Fuck
that's
off,
bullshit. It's
fuck
not even
off,
released
fuck
on that
off.
generation. That's bullshit. That shouldn't be included. All right, exclude that from the list. Take the 4, 5, and 6. That's not counted. That's like saying Minecraft. It's not fucking
Number
included.
4, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
No way.
That's fine. I mean, I wouldn't have it on mine,
No.
but that's fine. It's not on my top 5.
No.
But it's fine.
And then number 5, The God of War.
Okay, what's number 6?
The Last of Us. The Last of Us comes in at number 6. And I'm fucked off because Death Stranded doesn't even feature.
What, on the top 25?
In the top 25 of games, it doesn't feature. Resident
That's
Evil 2.
crazy.
Resident Evil 2 does, number 16.
I tell you what,
Yes.
this doesn't have to include in the podcast. I can always edit this out. Give us that top 25. I want to hear what that top 25 is.
Do you know what number 7 is?
I want to know
This
them
is
all.
the most.
I want to know them all.
This is the most effing ridiculous one. Dreams.
Oh, all right, okay. This list is fucking valid.
Dreams is number 7.
Keep on going, Phil. I want to know.
The Witcher 3 is number 8.
Okay, that's fair.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey is number 9.
No, shut up.
Horizon Zero Dawn is 10. Spider-Man is 11. Persona 5 is 12. Sekiro is number 13. Bloodborne is 14. Monster Hunter World is 15. Resident Evil 2 is 16. Hitman 2 is 17. Control is 18. Days Gone,
Fucking ridiculous.
19. Devil May Cry 5, 20. Resident Evil Biohazard, 21. Dishonored 2, 22. Last of Us Remastered, 23. Metro Exodus, 24. Shadow of the Colossus, 25.
Right, okay. That I got a few problems with
That's
that
their
list.
bullshit.
I-
That's
no,
their
yeah,
bullshit.
I got
list.
problems too. But my problem's not with the list, it's with Phil. Why'd you laugh when you said Devil May Cry 5?
Like,
Yeah, I don't know why he
That-
laughed at that. That's fucking crazy he laughed at that. And he was totally straight edge on fucking Grand Theft Auto.
You went
20.
Devil May Cry 5.
Yeah, at 20.
You mean it should be higher?
Well, I've not played it, but from what I know about Devil May Cry,
Devil May
it should be
Cry.
a lot higher.
Thank you. Okay, that's all I need to hear. Thank you.
Right,
Thank you.
that list is fucking bullshit. And I'm going to tell you why. And do you know what? I might actually include this on the podcast on the edit. I'm going to tell you why that list is bullshit. First off, you've got a load of games on there that aren't even fucking... They weren't even launched on the fucking console. You're talking about Grand Theft Auto, for fuck's sake. It launched as a PS3 game. Why is that on the list? Like, why is that on the list? Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You're telling me that Assassin's Creed Odyssey is better than Spider-Man? Are you fucking insane? Are you actually insane? That's ridiculous. And the fact that Days Gone is in that list is an actual insult. Days Gone's good. I got the platinum on it. It's nowhere near my 25 games of that generation. Nowhere fucking near. It's average and it outweighs its welcome by 35 hours. It's a 70-hour fucking game. And it needs to be about 20. It's way too long. No fucking way. I love Studio Ben, don't get me wrong. That game is no way near the spot they put that in. That fucking travesty, that list. Fucking travesty.
Death Stranding not even making it.
That's fucking
Like-
ridiculous.
Dreams coming in number 7.
Yeah, that's a joke.
Jesus.
That's an absolute farce.
Well,
That's Sony chucking him a tenner.
this is the PlayStation official magazine, so they are trying to boost sales of their games that they have interest in.
Yeah, of course. That's a farce. All 5 of my top 5 games featured on there, to be fair.
4 of my 5 did.
No Death Stranding.
All of mine did. All of mine did too. But
But that is a farce. That is an absolute farce. That list. No, a gamer didn't write that list. Someone who works at Sony wrote that list, not someone who plays games.
surely. Dreams. Who the fuck played
Dreams.
Dreams? It's like putting Knack. Why Knack at number 25? You might as well just fucking chuck it in there at that point, hadn't you?
Nah,
But
not
they're saying Dreams is better than Horizon, better than Spider-Man, better than Persona, better than Bloodborne.
Dreams better than Bloodborne.
Yeah,
Again.
I think that's a load of shit somehow. Can't imagine
I
it.
think this is why people get annoyed with Sony.
I fucking hate Sony.
Welcome to the official Xbox podcast with Potatochief. We are now switching sides, switching allegiances.
Switching and
In PS, we distrust.
Yeah. Jesus. Right, so Phil, do you want to unveil to us what our top 5 as a podcast is based on what we've put in?
So the definitive in PS We Trust top 5. Coming in at number 5, we've got God of War. Number 4, Death Stranding. Number 3, Resident Evil Biohazard. Number 2, Spider-Man. And of course, number 1, The Last of Us Part 2.
So I'm really happy with that list, guys. There's a lot of debate that you haven't heard on this podcast because I've edited it out. But it was pretty heated in terms of our viewpoints and our ways of measuring success. But That top 5, I'm very happy with. Don't know about you guys.
I'm happy with top 4.
Like, I've played every single one of these games, and I've enjoyed every single one of these games. When I'm looking back to the PlayStation magazine, oh my god, our top 5. They need to employ us.
If they try to employ us,
True.
I think what would be better is if we employed them. I think at this point, I think we're probably a better service than them.
It's a truer service.
It's a truer service,
is.
and it's one that you can review. So if you were to go onto Apple Podcasts or any of your podcast service of choice that offers a review service, go on and review the podcast. If it's not 5 stars, unlike Phil, I don't want to see it. So if it's less than 5 stars, don't post. But if it's 5 stars
Fuck off.
or more somehow, post it up. Let me see. And let us know who your favourite host is, and we can have a good bit of banter with that.
It's me.
That is it for this episode of In PS We Trust. Thank you ever so much for listening. I really appreciate all of you who tune into the episodes and take part with us. Message on Twitter, message on Facebook, whatever the case is. I really appreciate all of you. If you want to write into the show and be featured on the show itself, rather than just talking to us as hosts, that email address is pswetrust@gmail.com. Thank you ever so much. I've been Davey.
I've been Phil.
And I've been Spencer.
Take care, guys.
Peace!
In PS We Trust is hosted by Davey, Phil, and Spencer. You can write into the show via our email, pswetrust@gmail.com. Our Twitter is @InPSWeTrust. To find each of us online, follow our Twitters, @SSJDavey, @PhilipHoy, @SpenPie_. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. See ya.